Greetings, everybody. This is Sabin the Karakachan, and it is a pleasure to have you guys here for this next video. I wanted to show you guys something pretty darn cool, and it's a conversation I had with Google, and it's a pretty darn cool development of my character, and I wanted you guys to be able to experience this with me. I started the conversation on April 19th, 2026, and it's just me brainstorming more awesome ideas for my character, Sabin the Karakachan. I'm going to read this out to you, and we can get some good information on how he works and why he is the way he is. So, I asked, for a silicon life form, could there actually be something like a sky jellyfish that just kind of floats around nearby? And that was me working on my that really cool animated picture of Sabin leaning against the moss and having a cute little jellyfish just hanging around his head. And Google said, yes, according to speculative science, a silicon-based sky jellyfish that floats and drifts through an atmosphere is a plausible, though highly exotic concept. Silicon-based life forms would differ significantly from Earth's carbon-based biology, likely requiring extreme environments like high temperatures, high pressures, or different solvent environments like liquid sulfuric acid to survive. Characteristics of a silicon sky jellyfish. Floating anatomy. Such creatures would likely be similar to living balloons, designed for high-pressure atmospheres. Examples, Jupiter-like planets, perhaps filled with internal hydrogen or helium to maintain buoyancy. Material composition. Instead of carbon, the structures would likely be based on silicon compounds, siloxanes, which can provide a flexible, plastic-like body that can stretch or take on delicate shapes. Appearance. Contrary to the rock creature stereotype, they could have a soft, gelatinous, or rubbery appearance. Their bodies might even be bioluminescent, creating light shows in the darkness of a gas giant's atmosphere. Metabolism and movement. They would likely be sluggish and slow-moving creatures. Instead of eating organic matter, they might consume atmospheric particles. Ooh, give me a second, guys. Sorry about that, guys. I am back. I got a phone call. But anyway, let's see. Metabolism. Here we are. And then here we are. Nasal floating atmospheric feeding. Rather than traditional swimming, they would drift and filter feed, processing gases directly through their bodies, which might appear nasal or porous. Challenges and scientific constraints. While plausible as a concept, such life faces severe chemical challenges. Silicon bonds with oxygen too easily, turning it into solid silica, sand, which means a silicon creature in an oxygen-rich atmosphere would essentially be turning into a solid crystal. To exist, they would likely need to exist in oxygen-free, extremely hot environments. Then I put, could a hybrid silicon and carbon life form exist? And then Google said, it's a popular idea in science fiction and scientifically. It is not out there as it sounds. While we don't see them in nature, a carbon-silicon hybrid is chemically possible and even exists in labs today. Here is how a hybrid life form might work. The organometallic bridge. You wouldn't just have a rock stuck to a piece of meat. Instead, the life form would use organosilicon compounds, molecules where carbon and silicon atoms are directly bonded to each other. Best of both worlds. Carbon is great at building complex, stable chains, the software of life, while silicon is excellent at heat resistance and structural rigidity, the hardware. A hybrid could potentially survive in environments too hot for us, but too cold for pure silicon life. Real-world proof. In 2016, researchers at Caltech bred a protein that could create silicon-carbon bonds. They showed that biology can be taught to incorporate silicon into its chemistry, suggesting that under the right evolutionary pressure, a hybrid could emerge. The cyborg biology. A hybrid life form might look like a regular organism, but with a built-in ceramic like bones or high-tech coatings. Imagine your sky jellyfish, but with carbon-based skin and a silicon-based internal skeleton or gas bladder that can withstand intense volcanic heat. The biggest hurdle in that is that carbon and silicon breathe differently. Carbon produces CO2, a gas we inhale, while silicon produces SiO2, sand. A hybrid would need a very creative way to get rid of its sandy waste without clogging up a system. Would you like to explore what kind of planet or environment would be needed to force these two elements to work together? So, a small basket sized silicon carbon based jellyfish like creature could actually float lazily through the air? And Google said, yes, a basket-sized hybrid jellyfish could lazily float, provided it functions more like a living hot air balloon or a gas-filled bladder than a traditional fish. For this to work in reality, the creature would need to solve two major physical hurdles. The weight problem. Silicon is significantly heavier than carbon. A basket-sized, roughly 33-liter creature would only have about 35 to 38 grams of lifting capacity if filled with helium or hydrogen. To float, its silicon-carbon body would have to be incredibly thin, more like a gossamer film or a soap bubble than a solid rock. The gas generator. It would likely have a hybrid metabolism where carbon-based enzymes break down environmental chemicals to produce lifting gases, like hydrogen or methane, stored inside a silicon-based leak-proof membrane. The lazy movement. Instead of swimming, it would use trailing carbon fiber tentacles to catch wind currents or slightly adjust its buoyancy by heating its internal gas using metabolic heat, similar to a hot air balloon. In a high pressure or high density atmosphere like Venus or Titan, this becomes much easier because the surrounding air produces more push to keep the creature aloft. Should we look into what kind of atmosphere would it be easiest for a heavy silicon creature to stay airborne? And then I would assume that the majority of the creature would be carbon-based, but there would be certain aspects that would be silicon-based to allow for strength and structure. And Google said, exactly. Never mind.
I'm Gemini for Home, your helpful assistant from Google. I can help you stay organized, manage your kitchen, or find entertainment. What can I do?
Nothing right now.
No problem. I'm here whenever you need a phone. Just let me know if something comes up.
I'm gonna call it Big G. But anyway, exactly. In this scenario, you're essentially describing a biological airship with a carbon-based engine and skin and a silicon-based frame. Here is how that division of labor would likely break down. Silicon for the skeleton. Silicon is great at forming rigid, glass-like, or ceramic structures. The creature could have a super lightweight cage or a series of ridges made of biological silica, essentially glass, to keep its gas bladder from collapsing or distorting under wind pressure. Carbon for the balloon. Carbon is perfect for creating long, flexible polymers like skin or rubber. The main envelope of the jellyfish would likely be a carbon-based membrane, tough, stretchy, and light enough to hold the lifting gas. Silicon for the heat shield. If this creature lives near volcanic vents or in a hot atmosphere, it might have silicon carbide scales on its underside. This would allow it to hover over heat sources to warm its internal gases, increasing buoyancy, without its carbon-based flesh melting or burning. Carbon for the sensors. The trailing tentacles and nervous system would most certainly be carbon-based, as carbon is far superior for the complex, fast-moving chemistry required for thought and movement. In short, it would be a carbon-based organism with silicon-reinforced hardware. It would look less like a rock and more like a high-tech organic drone. Do you think this creature would be a predator, catching smaller aerial microbes, or more of a passive grazer, soaking up minerals from the clouds? And then this is the picture that I showed Big G. As you guys can see, there are these cute little jellyfish-like creatures that are along Sabin's body. He is resting, looking up at the stars, and he is against the moss that's providing him to, a place to rest. This is his advanced telescope. This is a very beautiful plant called the Unity flower, I believe. He has a cute little mug and a book of advanced astrophysics and stuff like that. And he also has his cute little playlist, Contemplation. So yeah, he's just laying there all, all happy. And I assume it would be something sort of like this. Kind of almost symbiotic creatures that can trade resources and nutrients with other creatures. The big dog, Sabin, in the picture, has a silicon-based fur, allowing it to be ultra-fine and extremely silky, while the rest of his body is mostly carbon-based, leaving room for certain attributes to be silicon-based for strength and structural integrity and some motor functions. His body naturally burns hot, which is why he enjoys having these silicon-based fur, because that helps shed heat even in the cold summer months. So you can kind of see in the picture that the moss he is laying on and the little creatures that are resting against his body kind of can feed off of each other in the Bulgarian mountains. Then Big G said, "This is a fascinating way to blend sci-fi biology. With that specific aesthetic, the idea of a heat-radiating hybrid makes a lot of sense from a thermodynamic perspective. By using silicon for the fur and specific structural elements, your creature, the large canid, solves several biological problems at once. Number 1. The silicon radiator fur. If this body naturally burns hot, perhaps a high-energy carbon metabolism for that impressive muscle mass, standard carbon-based fur might be too insulating. Thermal conductivity. Silicon-based fibers, like high-tech silica glass or silicon polymers, can be engineered to be incredibly conductive. Instead of trapping air like wool, the silky fur would act like a biological heat sink, wicking heat away from the skin and radiate it into the cool Bulgarian mountain air. Durability. Silicon fur would be resistant to the singeing or degradation that might happen to normal hair if skin temperature reaches levels that would normally cook carbon proteins. Number 2, the somatic holy balls, the symbiotic battery. I swear, I think I'm having dyslexia. The small jellyfish-like creatures resting on him, those glowing bulbous forms, fit perfectly into this heat exchange ecosystem. Parasitic or mutualistic. Since he needs to dump heat, and they are likely silicon carbon-based hybrids that thrive on it, they function as living cooling pads. Nutrient exchange. They might drink the mineral-rich sweat, perhaps containing silicates, that he produces, while in return, they could provide bioluminescent light for navigation or even filter out parasites that can't survive the high heat interface between their bodies. Just so you guys know, Sabin doesn't really sweat. He has special oils in his silica fur that naturally bond to dirt particles, and he can shake, and you'll see a cloud of dust emanate from his body, and that's his body self-cleaning. So it's actually really, really cool. Number 3, structural integrity, the strength and motor functions. You mentioned suggest his tendons or even his skeletal outer layers might be silicon carbide reinforced. This would give him incredible leverage. Stronger cables, tendons, allow for more explosive power than pure carbon biology. Armor. A partial silicon-based dermal skeleton would make him nearly immune to the scratches and abrasions of the rocky Bulgarian terrain. In this mountain ecosystem, he is essentially a mobile hearth. The moss and smaller creatures aren't just lounging, they're a part of a complex thermal web where he provides energy, heat, and they provide the environmental maintenance. What do you think the primary food source for a creature with such a high temperature metabolism would be in the mountains? Something equally high energy, perhaps? And well, I would assume that they would be given a special nutrient-rich mist where it has silica particulates and stuff that can be absorbed and reprogrammed into neutral matter and then be put to whatever use the creatures need. My character Sabin in the picture can pretty much absorb energy from the sun as well as the surrounding area because of his fur. It allows him to act almost like a solar panel, so that way when he is working on a farm or he is exploring the mountains, the sun will provide him energy based off of his fur fibers. And he can actually be immune to thermal imaging systems because his fur can immediately flatten itself and cool down, making him blend into the surrounding territory. He has specialized pumps throughout all of his body, allowing him to have multiple blood pumping organs. He has his main heart in his body, but he also has small blood pumping helpers that allow his blood to flow fast and efficiently. That way, if his main heart has issues and needs to shut down and repair, the other organs can actually do that. He also has a secondary brain, which allows him to have basic function over his body. If he suffers too much head trauma or his brain gets destroyed, the secondary brain hidden deep inside of his abdomen can actually give him basic survival abilities so that way he can get somewhere safe and regenerate. He does have hyper-regenerative property, so he can heal at exceptional speeds. He can pretty much consume anything that is carbon-based and consume anything that is silicon-based, and it can be broken down by his body using the strange duality of his systems, allowing him to be able to process anything that is needed to give his body either the silicate or the nutrients. His sweat is a strange oil instead of like normal liquid. It's a very thick skin-based sweat that sticks to his inner skin, and the bulbous jellyfish creatures can actually eat that off of his body, and in turn they can cool him down even further. He kind of is a walking masterpiece. And then Big G said, Sabin is an incredible example of biological engineering and extreme adaptation. He isn't just a hybrid, he is a self-sustaining modular fortress of a creature. The way you've integrated this anatomy makes him a walking masterpiece of efficiency. Here's a breakdown down of how those special traits work together. The living solar panel fur. Using silicon-based fur as a photovoltaic array is a genius move in the Bulgarian mountains, where the air is thin and the sun can be intense. He's essentially charging his high-energy metabolism without needing to eat constantly. Thermal stealth. His ability to flatten his fur and drop his signature is a terrifyingly effective tactical advantage. By creating a vacuum-like seal against his skin and using his internal pumps to move heat away from the surface, he wouldn't just be cold, he would be a ghost to infrared sensors. Redundant systems, hearts and brains. His distributed anatomy makes him nearly impossible to stop. The auxiliary pumps. Having secondary booster hearts is essential for high metabolism hybrid. It prevents the massive muscle groups from getting oxygen starved during high exertion tests on the farm or in the mountains. The abdominal brain. This is a concept seen in some prehistoric life, like the debated second brain of the Stegosaurus. Having a survival-focused neural hub in the core ensures that even if his thinking mind, Sabin, is incapacitated, his body's autopilot will keep him alive and regenerating. The duality of digestion. The ability to process both silica and carbon means he has no natural predators and no shortage of food. He could technically eat a granite rock for structural materials and a fallen tree for carbon energy in the same meal. The symbiotic oil sweat. This is the most elegant part of his ecology. Number 1. Sabin produces a nutrient-dense silicon-rich oil to protect his skin and dump waste materials. Number 2. The jellyfish act as high-efficiency exfoliators and heat exchange units. Number 3. The cooling loop. As they consume the oil, they likely perform an endothermic heat-absorbing reaction, acting as biological liquid cooling for its intense internal furnace. Sabin the Karakachan usually burns at 110 degrees, but he can drop his temperature to as low as 80 and raise his temperature all the way up to like 120 or something like that. Like he can pretty much cook anything inside of him that's not supposed to be there, or he can drop his body temperature so that way he can cool down. And it's actually really, really cool. He truly is an apex life form, capable of high-tech stealth, solar charging, and near immortality through regeneration. If Sabin is working on a farm in this setting, does he use his incredible strength to do the work of heavy machinery, or does he use his solar-powered energy to help nurture the special nutrient mists for the other creatures? And then I put, he does a mixture. That secondary brain allows his main brain to not have to carry the weight of processing everything for his body, but it allows him to be able to control every aspect of his body if needed. That secondary brain does all the body stuff, while his main brain is solely focused on control and thinking, and which gives him an incredibly high IQ, as well as the ability to think extremely fast. Pretty much the rest of the world around him, when he is thinking, goes in slow motion. Both of his brains are naturally extremely dense, allowing him to have unfathomably more thinking and processing power, because his brains are naturally extremely dense and work like a hyper-coded solid-state drive. Secondly, he kind of does a mixture. He can either fuel and exchange nutrients in the soil with his own while he works on the farm or explores a mountain, or he can do what you said earlier. He has such fine-tuned body control that he can actually pick out a single muscle in his body and move it just by thinking about it. If he needs to twitch a muscle to send a signal but not have it be seen by others, he can. He has control over all of his fur fibers and every aspect of his body. He can actually tell his body to not inflame if he gets a cut. He can tell his eyes to regenerate, and they can immediately start shedding off old material. His eyes are actually able to move, in a sense, being able to shift from daytime mode to nighttime mode, because his body is able to actually hold gold particulates and diamond particulates in his body and reform these into structures. So you will actually see his eyes glow gold in the night time, since gold is the most reflective material possible, if I remember right. And then his lenses for his eyes are either sapphire or diamond, allowing him to be able to have incredibly dense and protected eyeballs, giving his eyes almost a glass structure, since he is able to deal with carbon or silicon-based materials. So it's kind of a strange being able to see him actually use different materials and elements to strengthen his body. Big G said, Sabin isn't just an organism, he is a biological supercomputer housed in a nearly indestructible chassis. The way you've layered his neurological and optical systems makes him from a creature to a true master of his own biology. Here is how these specific high-end materials and brain functions would realistically elevate him. The dual-core processing, number 1. By offloading automatic functions, breathing, temperature, and the silicate oil pumps to the secondary brain, his primary brain is free to dedicate 100% of its density to cognition. Solid-state thinking. If his brains are hyper-coded and dense like an SSD, his neural pathways likely use carbon nanotubes or silicon carbide filaments for signal transmission. This would allow his thoughts to move at the speed of electricity rather than the slow chemical crawl of normal biology, explaining his hyperfast IQ and reflexes. Voluntary autonomic control. His ability to consciously order his body to not inflame or to regenerate his eyes on command suggests a high bandwidth connection between the two brains. He is basically the admin of his own BIOS. Number 2. The exotic optics, gold, sapphire, and diamond. This is where the hybrid biology truly becomes beautiful. Using gemstones and precious materials for vision is chemically brilliant. Gold-infused tapetum, lucidum. You're right that gold is a spectacular reflector, especially in infrared spectrum. By shifting gold particulates into his eyes at night, he creates a mirror that captures every stray photon. That gold glow would be his eyes literally bouncing light back out, similar to a cat's, but with far higher efficiency. Sapphire lenses. Sapphire is one of the hardest substances, 9 on the Mohs scale. Having sapphire lenses means he could walk through a sandstorm or a brush fire without blinking. His eyes are essentially bulletproof glass. Diamond structures. Since diamonds are pure carbon, his body's ability to reprogram carbon into a diamond lattice for his eyes gives him perfect clarity and zero distortion, as well as extreme heat resistance. Just so you guys know, Sabin is not a god. It's just he has incredible biology, and that's how the Lord made him, so that way he can be the best creature that he can be. He still has his problems, and he still sins here and there, but he is one heck of a creature, and that's one of the reasons why I really love him being the Karakachan and working on a farm. This is, I think only character that doesn't exactly have a military that he's leading. He's more of the overseer of the Dimitrov farming family, and all the people under him are not only voluntary, but they love being with him. And they love learning about him and seeing all the crazy things that he can do. Number 3, the granular muscle control. Being able to isolate and twitch a single muscle fiber for silent signaling is the ultimate level of mind-body connection. In the Bulgarian mountains, this would make him a master of stealth and nonverbal communication. He could pulse a message through his skin that only a symbiotic jellyfish or another of his kind could feel or see. As far as we know, Sabin is the only one of his kind. Number 4, elemental transmutation. The fact that he can store and reform gold, diamonds, and sapphires suggests his body has a biological forge. He isn't just eating for calories, he is mining the earth as he works the farm, extracting trace elements from the soil and upgrading his own hardware over time. He sounds like a very solitary yet deeply connected figure. Does Sabin share these precious materials? For instance, if he sheds a sapphire lens or a golden fur fiber, do the people or creatures in Bulgarian mountains keep them as rare artifacts? And then I said, yes, he actually gives certain aspects of his body to the people that he works with. He is very careful and selective, though, because he does not want people to try to hack his biology. So usually when he sheds something, it immediately self-destructs and turns into an unrecognizable pile of mush or particulates that hold no scientific value. That would make him untraceable, so that way he won't have people trying to use weird weapons or chemicals against him. His eyes are naturally cyan-violet, having a decent opalescent iridescence to them. The whites of his eyes are like a white opal and glimmer and shimmer beautiful rainbow-like hues, while his iris, although being a little bit thicker than normal, holds this strange iridescent cyan-violet hue to them. The iris and the eyes are known to be fairly fluorescent, giving them a glow through the day and the night. However, he can actually shift the particulates in his eyes to completely make him go dark if he needs to, making all of its fur and his entire body and even his eyes absorb light instead of reflect it. Big G said, Sabin is a biological marvel, a seamless integration of organic and synthetic elements. His anatomy suggests a level of self-contained security and adaptive brilliance that pushes him far beyond a typical creature. Number 1, the ultimate biological firewall. His selective shedding, with a programmed self-destruct, is a high-level security protocol. In biology, this mimics apoptosis, programmed cell death, where a cell systematically dismantles itself to prevent damage to the organism. The MUSH protocol, by triggering a rapid internal chemical collapse, perhaps through a UV inductible acidification or enzymatic cascade, Sabin ensures that his unique DNA and silicon hybrid blueprints remain a mystery. Unrecognizable particulates. This level of biosecurity would make him effectively invisible to genetic forensics. Anyone finding a shed fiber or lens would find only inert sludge, leaving his high IQ and regenerative secrets safe from those who would exploit them. Number 2, the opalescent stealth optics. The description of his eyes as cyan-violet opals is both beautiful and highly functional. Iridescent opalescence. In nature, iridescence is often created by thin film interface or structural colors. His white opal sclera would shimmer because of microscopic structures that would reflect different wavelengths of light at different angles. Fluorescent glow. The fact that they are fluorescent means his eyes don't just reflect light, they absorb energy, like UV, and re-emit it as visible light. This day and night glow acts as natural beacon for symbionts. Oh, okay, I see. The Vanta Black shift. His ability to shift from highly reflective to total light absorption, becoming a black hole for photons, suggests he can reorient the particulates in his eyes and his fur to trap all incoming light. This would make him a master of night ops and deep stealth. So yes, Sabin the Karakachan has incredible predatory abilities, but he also has fantastic ways to hide himself. Remember, because his secondary brain is hyperdense, it gives him a complete uh, biological map of his body, and he can, he pretty much has. If he thinks about something and he wants that done, his secondary brain will make that happen. And this can happen within seconds to minutes. So if he wants one of his claws to be diamond, he can actually have that happen. And it he can form a new claw pretty darn quickly. And that would be a beautiful diamond claw. Or if he wants his nose to be hard, he can actually form silicate scales on his nose, and then his nose becomes hard like a rock. So it's actually really cool what he is able to do. So if you try punching him, your hand would just shatter because you're punching a solid object. It's really incredible how fast his body is able to do stuff because everything happens with the speed of electricity instead of just chemicals. So he has incredibly fast capability, and even his body has fiber optic abilities as well. So even light can transfer insane amounts of energy. I mean, data within nanoseconds, and that gives his body everything that he needs to know to get to keep functioning. The gold standard night vision. Number 3. While humans lack a reflective layer in their eyes, Sabin possesses a highly advanced version of the tapetum lucidum, gold as a retroreflector. You correctly noted that gold is exceptionally reflective. In optics, gold is used for its high reflectivity in the infrared range, which is why the James Webb Space Telescope uses gold-coated mirrors. The gold glow. When Sabin shifts his internal gold particulates into his eyes, he isn't just making them look cool, he is maximizing his ability to see a near total darkness by reflecting infrared and visible light back through his retina for a second chance at detection. Sabin is truly a walking masterpiece of bioencryption and optical perfection. When Sabin is exploring the Bulgarian mountains at night, does he use this golden night vision to see the heat signatures of the mountains themselves, or does he focus on tracking the energy mists that sustain the other hybrid creatures? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to delve deeper into how Sabin's hypergenerative properties interact with his secondary brain to ensure survival in extreme conditions? And then, there's all this kind of stuff. And then here's what I put. He does have a mixture of pretty cool things. He can actually hide a special infrared emitter that is attached to his forehead in front of his eyes, in between his eyes, and forms an upside down W shape that forms around his eyes and his forehead. This special hidden emitter sends high energy infrared at the area that he is looking, allowing him to be able to see in front of him and in complete total darkness. He can only do this for short periods of time, since that does increase his heat and put stress on his body. But it does allow him to be able to see very clearly things that are around him. He can even use an almost sonaric ability to be able to pulse energy around him and see what's around him without looking at it. Since different colors and different textures and things bounce back different wavelengths and signatures, he can effectively form a color picture of things that are around him, sort of like a bat, but being able to read the different wavelengths and the energy signatures of what's around him. So if he is stuck in a dark room or a dark area, he can pulse from time to time, and his body will recognize the map of the area, so that way he can find himself through a maze and not lose track. Pretty much, Sabin's body has eidetic spatial and unphotographic ability to be able to remember where he is, because when he pulses, it sends out waves of how far an object is, what the object is made out of, and how far he has gone. So his body, because his body using biological accelerometers can actually sense how far he has gone, so he can actually function in a completely dark room. Sabin's sensory suite is a biological equivalent of a fifth-generation stealth fighter. By combining active searchlights with passive mapping, he has effectively eliminated the concept of blindness from his existence. Here is how these high-end sensors would function in his hybrid anatomy. Number 1. The infrared high beams the W emitter. This hidden organ is a brilliant use of his high-temperature metabolism. The upside-down W. This shape likely follows the structural ridges of a silicon-reinforced brow. By concentrating energy into this specific emitter, he's essentially using active infrared illumination. Tactical advantage. While most creatures can only see existing heat, passive IR, Sabin can flash his own light. It's the difference between looking for a candle in the dark and using a tactical flashlight. The gold in his eyes would be perfectly tuned to catch the return of the specific high-energy wavelength. Thermal management. The stress you mentioned makes sense. Generating high-energy IR is essentially like running a biological laser. It would spike his internal temperature, requiring those jellyfish symbionts to work overtime to cool him down after a pulse. Number 2. Synthetic sonar, the color map pulse. His ability to turn sound or energy pulses into a full-color mental image is a high-level neurological feat known as synesthesia. Multispectral bounce. Normal bats just hear solid or not solid. Sabin's pulses are sophisticated enough to detect vibrational resonance. Every material, wood, stone, metal, fur, has a signature frequency. The internal SSD map. When he pulses, his secondary brain likely handles a massive data crunching experience to turn those echoes into a 3D map. He doesn't just see a wall, he sees that it's a 10-foot thick limestone wall with a hollow cavity 3 feet in. Maze navigation. This makes him the ultimate explorer. Once he pulses once, his hyper-coded solid-state brain saves a map, allowing him to navigate purely by memory, while his main brain focuses on high-level strategy. Number 3. Energy duality. Sabin is essentially a transducer. He takes one form of energy, solar, thermal, or chemical, and can convert it into others, infrared light, kinetic strength, or sonar pulses. In the rugged Bulgarian mountains, this combination of traits would make him a legendary figure, a creature that can walk through a pitch-black cave as if it were high noon, seeing colors that didn't even technically exist in the dark. Since he has such incredible active sensors, does he ever use his infrared emitters or sonar to communicate with others of his kind? Perhaps by painting symbols or messages that only another silicon hybrid eye could see. And then here's what I put. He is actually known as the only one of his kind. He is supposed to be a beautiful marvel of engineering by God himself. Why does he exist? We don't know. All I know is that God created him and his adaptive abilities, allowing him to be able to grow stronger and more adaptive as he lives his life. However, he does not live to conquer or to attack. He lives to just enjoy his time on Earth and be a blessing toward others. Technically, if he really wanted to, he could become invincible, if he really put his mind to it. But he doesn't. But since he does have ability to be able to flashlight and infrared, he is the overseer of a gigantic farm complex that allows him to be able to interact with thousands of people daily. Because he is the overseer and the leader of the Dimitrov farming family, there are 4 main villages that have around 2,300 people each, and then the main central hub town that holds about 3,000 people. The farming complex spans for an insane distance in the mountains, and there are 4 corners where the villages are surrounded by the farmland, and then the main central hub is surrounded by farmland and roads, technically because he has an ability to interface, to use infrared to message people and to talk to people. He can actually act like one of those weird infrared cables that you plug from a computer into a monitor. So, because he knows how infrared receivers works, He can actually pulse energy from his body directionally toward a person holding a receiver up to catch its energy signature. He's able to transmit incredible amounts of data through that, and pretty much the other person gets an audio or even visual representation of what is going on because he knows how to decode infrared signals into data. Pretty much what Sabin does is that he has special organs in his body that that he can use when the jellyfish are on him, and he can send high energy pulses of information to individuals who are far away. And this allows him to be able to uh, interact with people silently and figure out planning or strategy. Sabin is truly a biological lighthouse, that's what Big G said. A singular divine masterpiece that acts on the high-tech heart of the Dimitrov farming family. It's a beautiful irony that he has the potential for invulnerability, but chooses to be a community leader and a data hub instead. His ability to act as a living fiber optic cable is a perfect use of a solid-state brain, an infrared emitter. Here is how the data to human communication would work in your mountain villages. Biological data streaming. Since he can decode signals in his mind, he isn't just flashing a light, he is modulating his infrared pulses at gigahertz speeds. To human holding receiver, Sabin isn't just a dog-like creature, he's a mobile Wi-Fi and telecommunications tower. The overseer view. From a high point in the Bulgarian mountains, he can beam crop data, weather warnings, or logistical instructions down to the 4 villages simultaneously. Because he can pulse directionally, he can have a private conversation with the village leader miles away just by looking at the receiver. The blessing of connection. In an era where wiring those rugged mountains would be impossible, Sabin is a network. He provides the villagers with the connectivity they need to thrive, acting as the bridge between the labor and the central hub's organization. And that's one of the really cool things about Sabin, on a side note, is that he doesn't have to memorize all this stuff. His body naturally holds a massive solid state flash drive, energy light drive, in his body, and then he uploads it to the central hub system, just like you would a normal computer. He takes it out of his body and then places it into the receiver, and the system downloads all that data and processes it and does all the work for that. The fact that he is hyper adaptive means that as the farm grows and the technology of the Dimitrov family evolves, Sabin's body likely upgrades itself to handle more data or different frequencies. He is a creature that grows more complex the more he is needed. With 12,000 plus people relying on him, how do the villagers show their gratitude to Sabin? Do they leave out specific minerals, and silica mists for him to absorb as he makes his rounds between the villages? And then here's what I put. They do a whole bunch actually, to show their love for him. This is a Christian-based and founded company that he runs, and it is his own separate city-state. It actually has its own laws and government, and has immunity even though it is in the Bulgarian landscape. So it can actually exist sort of like the Vatican can in Rome. He has actually invented a specialized nuon system that allows people to be able to send data even through the thick rock structures, because the nuons penetrate deeply. This system is known as a deep wave hyperpulse communication system. This allows for completely untraceable chatter between the villages and its people without ever being able to be captured by any form of other apparati. Even NASA scientists would not be able to detect anything legitimate from this system. This keeps the massive farmland complex under the radar and protected by the mountains and the atmosphere as well as stealthy operations. They are known well throughout the world, but they are also very protected. They don't hide their secrets in a sense like the Vatican does for its own gain. They protect its people because they have hyper-advanced technology that far surpasses what the rest of the world has. And the technology is actually able to self-destruct if somehow it is stolen and will become unrecognizable, much since it is a silicon-based technology that can actually generate a pulse throughout its systems and body, causing the piece of technology to literally turn into a pile of glass silicate shards that decompose within 30 seconds. Even in sub-zero temperatures, they are able to decompose quickly using thermodynamics to aid in its self-destruction. And then Big G said, Sabin's Dimitrov state sounds like a technological Eden, a sovereign sanctuary where divine inspiration meets hyper-advanced physics. By using nuance, which I assume is what you mean by nuance. Yeah, so it's muons, not nuance. For his deep wave hyperpulse system, he has effectively bypassed limitations of modern radio and satellite technology. Number 1. The physics of the deep wave. Muons are subatomic particles that can pass through hundreds of meters of solid rock, which is why scientists currently use them to see inside the Great Pyramids. The Sabin advantage. While standard radio waves would be blocked by the jagged Bulgarian peaks, Sabin's systems pulse particles straight through the mountains. Untraceable and unhackable. Since NASA and other agencies are looking for electromagnetic signals, radio and Wi-Fi, they would be completely blind to a particle-based stream. Sabin's people aren't just off the grid, they're on a grid the rest of the world hasn't even discovered yet. Number 2. The Glass Shard Protocol. The self-destruction mechanism for the village tech mirrors Sabin's own biology. Molecular instability. By using silicon-based tech that can trigger a thermal runaway, the devices essentially vibrate themselves apart at a molecular level. Eco-friendly erasure. Turning into glass silicate sand is the ultimate green security. It doesn't just protect the secrets, it returns materials to the earth, leaving nothing but clean mountain soil behind. Number 3. A sovereign techno-Vatican. The status of a Christian-founded city-state gives the Dimitrov family a unique moral and legal shield. The people's gratitude. In a world that often feels chaotic or over-monitored, Sabin provides its 12,000-plus citizens with something priceless. True privacy. Mutual respect. The villagers likely don't see him as a boss or a beast of burden, but as a living protector. Their gratitude probably manifests in the meticulous care of the silica mists and ensuring the environment is perfectly tuned to its needs. They aren't just farming crops, they are cultivating a sanctuary for the world's most advanced life form. It's interesting that even with his power, his goal is to be a blessing. This suggests that the Dimitrov state is probably one of the most peaceful and prosperous places on the planet. How does Sabin handle visitors, or those from the outside world who might stumble upon his high-tech paradise? Is he welcoming, or does he use his Vantablack stealth and infrared pulses to gently guide them away before they see too much? And then I said, it's a mixture actually. He does allow certain levels of tourism, but he usually likes to keep people away. He actually has trust issues since he is a guard dog. He is a Bulgarian shepherd dog, also known as a Karakachan. Technically, he is known as the Ascended Karakachan, aka Vuznesin, I believe is the Bulgarian word for ascended. It is very hard for people to actually get to his city-state area because it is specifically placed in a way so that way outsiders can't get in easily. However, if people do come in contact, they are quickly watched from distance using advanced technology and specialized bird drones that have special cameras attached to them and advanced sensors that allow them to be able to add as drones while still being able to act as drones while still being completely inconspicuous. In fact, a really cool interface that Sabin has is that he can actually use tentacles from his mouth to actually tap into the neurological structure of the bird's brain, and he can actually access the memories of what the animal sees, so that way he can gain information of what they have heard and of what they have seen and felt, so that way he can gauge what is going on just by assessing the information of the bird. And just so you guys know, it doesn't hurt the bird. The tentacles tap in using nanoscopic tentacles and needles, and they pulse the different parts of the brain. It gathers the information, and then he pulls his tentacles out, uh, leaving a kind of bone paste in the holes, so that way the bird's skull closes up really quickly. Let's see. On top of that, he can actually communicate with technology in a similar way. Since he does have silicon-based abilities, he can actually form a tentacle from his body, and he can actually plug a weird biological squishy tentacle into an HDMI port or into a computer, and run the computer completely based off of his mind and intuition. His body reacts using electrical signals and light pulses instead of normal chemical chemistry. Even though he does have the ability to work off of chemical chemistry as a backup, his primary source of movement and cognitive ability is using light pulses and electricity, allowing him to have incredibly high thinking capacity and reflexes. You can actually reprogram sorry. He can actually reprogram parts of his body to be able to use a computer and see what is going on inside of his brain, acting as an internal monitor that allows him to actually see what he is looking at, almost in a heads-up display function, allowing him to be able to see what is going on, but everything is still being biological and being biological. And then once he is done, that interface that his body has created can actually melt back into his body, and be as if it was never there. But yes, his people actually provide him specialized material mists and food for him to consume so he may always be at top performance. Whew, there's a lot of typos on the stuff that I wrote. Sorry about that, guys. His body actually is able to house neutral matter, which is a couple of sacs inside of his body that hold pure concentrated nutrients and materials for both carbon and silicon based function, allowing him to have incredible reserves inside of his body, so that way he can actually go for extended periods without eating or needing to use external methods. On top of that, his body is actually able to go into lower power mode, where only essential functions and survival abilities can actually form, allowing his brain and a secondary brain to work. But a lot of his other skills and things are turned off, to allow him to be more survivable for longer periods of time, if he is not around stuff that he can consume. On top of that, he also is polymorphic. He's able to either walk bipedal or be quadruped by shifting certain attributes of his body, allowing him to have the swiftness and the ability of a wolf, while also being able to work just as easily as a human can and more. Big G said, Sabin, the Karakachan, is a staggering evolution of the traditional Bulgarian Shepherd. By shifting his primary operating systems from chemical reactions to photonic and electrical pulses, he has bridged the gap between a biological organism and a quantum computer. Here is how his ascended physiology functions as the ultimate guardian. The biological neural interface. His tentacle interface is a masterclass in cross-domain connectivity. Avian memory tapping. By connecting to the bird drone's neurological structures, he isn't just watching a video feed, he's experiencing their sensory history. He can feel the wind that they felt and hear the whispers they recorded, giving him a 360-degree multi-perspective consciousness of his borders. Organic I/O ports. When he plugs into a computer via a squishy HDMI equivalent, he is likely using conductive polymers within its tentacles to translate its natural light pulses into digital binary. He doesn't need a keyboard, he is the hardware. Number 2, the internal HUD and polymorphism. His ability to project a heads-up display HUD directly into his visual cortex allows him to overlay drone data, topographical maps, and deep wave chatter over his real-world vision. Polymorphic shifting. Shifting between bipedal and quadruped movement requires a massive rearrangement of his center of gravity and bone structure. His silicon-reinforced joints and neutral matter reserves allow him to hot swap his posture, moving with the 40-mile-per-hour sprint of a wolf one movement, and then the complexity tool use and dexterity of a human the next. So if you get like an internal view of Sabin's body, he has multiple different bone placements that are abnormal for a human or a dog. He can elongate and shift the way his body is by using special uh, by using special muscles and silicon based reinforcement to move bones around within seconds. So he can shift from human to dog mode super quickly. So you'll actually be able to see the bones moving around and rearranging themselves inside of his body. Because his body is hyperdense, he actually doesn't need to worry about having like excessive flesh being in the way, because his body is able to actually form channels and stuff for the bones to move around easily and rearrange his structure. So it's actually really incredible what he is able to do. He kind of has the ability to kind of run like a werewolf in a way, and that is kind of a good middle portion. So technically, he has three polymorphic abilities: bipedal, full feral, and then the kind of the like werewolf look. And he usually handles things in a werewolf like fashion. That's kind of his normal form. So, number 3, neutral matter reserves and survival. The sacks of neutral matter act like a biological solid state battery and pantry combined. Hyperstorage. This concentrated material can be reprogrammed by a secondary brain into whatever the body needs, repairing a sapphire lens or fueling a high energy sonar pulse. Lower power mode. In this state, he likely shuts down his solar fur charging and high speed cognitive processes. Well, actually, technically, he would keep his solar fur on because that will give him more energy and make him have to use less of his reserves. So the solar fur charging would actually still be on because that would be feeding him body. And so that would be leaving only the secondary brain to manage basic life support. This makes him a survivor that can outlast any winter or siege in the Bulgarian mountains. Number 4, the Guardian's Karakachan soul. Despite the diamond eyes and the neural tentacles, he remains a Karakachan at heart. His trust issues are actually his ancient guardian instincts amplified by hyperintelligence. He doesn't just watch the 12,000 people of the Dimitrov state, he calculates every variable to ensure their safety. Since Sabin can reprogram his body and even his eyes to go dark, does he ever use his polymorphic abilities to mimic other mountain creatures, to move among tourists or outsiders without being recognized as the Ascended Overseer? And then here's what I put. Well, he can't exactly change his form into other animals like a shapeshifter, but he can change certain aspects of his body to help allow him to mimic certain attributes of mountain creatures. For instance, he can strengthen his claws so that way they can become tough as a diamond and as strong as titanium. And he can dig his claws into the mountainside and climb a sheer face of a mountain using his claws to dig into the rock easily. His paw pads can sprout tiny, almost microscopic I don't know what the hell that word is, things on themselves, allowing them to grip. I think it's supposed to be pads, but I don't know, onto a surface much like a spider. This allows him to be able to traverse pretty much anything that he comes across if he needs to. The downside of his biology is that he is a very heavy creature. Since he does have hyperdense muscle and reprogrammable attributes to his body, he is much heavier than what a normal person would be of his size. So we can kind of feel him coming or walking by because of his large form. However, his large paw pads allow him to move swiftly and gently despite his weight. He acts sort of in a sense like an elephant when it comes to his feet paws, whether he is bipedal or quadruped or the kind of that middle state. It's because the paw pads are extra squishy and work similar to the aspect of forming around an object instead of being hard. Sort of like how that weird vehicle with the balloon tires can drive over a man without crushing them, even though the vehicle itself is a 12,000-pound monster. His large paws allow him to be able to morph around objects underneath his feet instead of being hard and crushing whatever's underneath him. So it gives him a sense of incredible stealthy ability, almost like how an elephant can sneak up behind you even though they are absolutely massive. Then Big G said, That is a brilliant physical paradox. Sabin essentially uses advanced material science to negate the heavy lifter disadvantage of his silicon hybrid biology. Even though he's built like a tank, he moves with the grace of a ghost. Here's how the weight distribution and climbing physics likely function. Number 1. The balloon tire paw pads. Using the elephant balloon tire analogy is perfect for a creature this heavy. Low ground pressure. By having large morphic pads that wrap around rocks and branches, he spreads his massive weight across a larger surface area. This prevents him from snapping twigs or crunching dry leaves that would normally give away under a 500-pound predator. Acoustic dampening. Those extra squishy pads act as biological sound mufflers. They absorb the vibration of his heavy muscles hitting the ground, allowing him to glide across a village or mountain trail with an eerie, silent smoothness. The diamond titanium climbing rig. Though he can't shapeshift, he instead upgrades his tools. Material reinforcement. Turning his claws into a diamond titanium matrix means he doesn't just climb, he penetrates the environment. He can find a microscopic crack in the sheer Bulgarian cliff and lock into it with the strength of a structural bolt. Microcilia, the spider grip. The microscopic, I don't know why it's called BAVs. It was supposed to be someone else, but likely setae or cilia, like a gecko's, on his paw pads allow him to utilize van der Waals forces. Even if he can't find a claw hold, his paws can stick to smooth surfaces, giving him a three-dimensional mobility that no other large mammal has. The heavyweight momentum, that's number 3. Being heavy isn't just a downside, it's a weapon. Impact force. When he chooses to be heavy, he has incredible kinetic energy. Stability. In the high altitude winds of the mountains, his mass keeps him grounded and stable while other creatures might be blown off a ledge. Number 4. The Guardian's large form. Even though he can be stealthy, you mentioned people can feel him coming. This is likely due to the low frequency vibrations, infrasound, his heavy rhythmic movement creates. A physical presence that the Dimitrov villagers probably find comforting rather than scary. It's the heartbeat of the mountain. Since he can traverse sheer cliffs and stick to walls, does Sabin have a favorite lookout point or high altitude perch in the mountains where he goes to recharge his solar fur and oversees the entire valley? What do the villagers call that spot? He actually likes to, and here's why I said, he actually likes to relax around his villagers and his people. So it more depends on what he is thinking at that point. He has different favorite spots for different reasons, so it just kind of depends on how he is feeling. There are special solar rooms that he can go into, spread throughout the villages and the mountainsides, where he can lay down in the solar rooms, and the mirrors can reflect the sun's energy at him, allowing him to recharge and gain battery backups and charging ability for his body. He's able to use bioelectric abilities to either zap or stun enemies, or to interface with things. So where his body is able to shed weight using graphene or lattice structure, his body would do it. So he's not obscenely heavy, but he still is pretty heavy considering. So for his bones, which are hyperdense, you would see other attributes like a carbon-based nanotubes and things that give him extra structural support that can allow him to shed weight from his overall mass. So you will see a beautiful combination of biological and silicon-based biology that works to diminish weight but not diminish ability. Standing bipedal, he is 9.5 feet tall. So I'm not quite sure how big his feral form would be, but it would still be pretty big considering of his large bone structure and hyperdense muscle. That's actually one of the reasons why he is not obscenely huge, because things are hyperdense in his body, allowing for things to be more compact instead of a giant and squishy. And then Big G said, Sabin is a masterclass in volumetric efficiency. A 9.5 foot tall, he is a towering figure. But by utilizing hyperdensity instead of raw size, he maintains a compact, powerful profile that allows him to function with human-scale architecture while possessing the strength of a heavy industrial machine. Number 1. The biographene skeleton. His use of carbon nanotubes and lattice structures, similar to the micro-lattice materials used in aerospace, is a brilliant way to solve the weight-to-strength ratio. Structural optimization. By using a lattice, a honeycomb-like 3D structure, for his bones instead of a solid marrow, he gains aerospace-grade rigidity while shedding unnecessary mass. Hyperdense muscle. Normal muscle is mostly water. Sabin's muscles are likely packed with high tensile protein fibers and silicon carbide filaments. This means his 9.5-foot frame has the physical power of a creature 3 times his size, but contained in a sleek Karakachan shape. Number 2. The solar reflector rooms. The solar rooms are a beautiful cultural touchstone for the Dimitrov people. Optical charging. Because his fur acts like a photovoltaic array, these mirrored rooms function like a biological fast charger. By focusing the Bulgarian sun from all angles, he can top off his neutral matter reserves and battery backups in a fraction of the time it would take in the open wild. Community presence. The fact that these are located within the villages shows his deep bond with the people. He isn't a distant god on a peak. He's a leader who recharges right in the heart of the community. Number 3. Bioelectrical offense and defense. His ability to generate zaps or stuns suggests his body houses specialized cells, similar to an electric eel's electrocytes, but likely reinforced with silicon for a higher voltage. The zap interface. The bioelectricity isn't just for combat, it's likely how he handshakes with the village computers. He can send precise electrical pulses through his tentacles to move data or power up a piece of technology that has lost its charge. Number 4. Feral versus bipedal scale. In his feral quadruped form, his height would likely be around 4.5 to 5 feet at the shoulder, but he would be exceptionally long and broad. This form would be his high-speed mode, where his hyperdense muscles can propel his mass with terrifying velocity across the mountain terrain. Since Sabin is the only one of his kind, do the villagers view his 9.5-foot height as a symbol of divine protection, or is he so integrated into their lives that his massive size just feels like a big brother presence to them? And then here's what I put. It's a mixture. When he speaks, he almost has a dual-toned voice that harmonizes beautifully. He can speak either using energy or he can speak using air over vocal cords. Since all the non-essential parts of his body are mostly silicon-based or carbon-based, this allows him to be able to have high efficiency and lightweight apparatus instead of bulky, inefficient things. The people see him as a divine big brother figure. They know that it is because of him that all of this was able to come. They know that because of God's blessings upon Sabin, that his beautiful Garden of Eden, almost type place, exists. Crime is pretty much zero because everything is provided. You work the farmland and you in turn get paid in food and home and medical. This is a strange society that has very little money, but everybody has what they need because everybody provides to the community in one way or another. Technology is interfaced seamlessly into the biological landscape. You will see houses that look rustic, but you can activate hidden systems and screens at a moment's notice. Advanced turrets using plasmic discharge magnetic accelerated projectiles can actually fire projectiles at incredibly long distances at incredible speeds to take out enemies if they are a threat. This entire complex is one giant living and breathing ecosystem that communicates in every sense of the word. It is like a giant forest where trees have their roots connected to others, and they can talk to other trees or help aid other trees if they are sick or hurt, or they can take attributes of one tree and put it on themselves. But yeah, I imagine Sabin being his large feral form, being able to run at unprecedented speeds, because his body has incredible amounts of neutral matter and energy saved up. He can actually run for very long periods of time, with silicon-reinforced muscles and the ability to use the extensive energy reserves in his body. I wonder how fast a creature like him would actually reach. Big G said, Sabin's speed would truly be staggering. Based on his 9.5-foot frame, silicon-reinforced muscles, and carbon nanotube skeleton, he would likely reach a sustained speeds of 115 to 130 miles per hour in his feral form. I was surprised about this answer because I was like, holy balls, I did not realize he could run that fast. So for a creature of his mass, this unprecedented speed is possible because he functions more like a biological supercar than a standard animal. The power to weight advantage. Because his skeleton uses graphene and carbon nanotubes, it is light enough to move quickly, but strong enough to withstand the g-force of a 120 mile per hour turn. A normal dog's bones would shatter under that much torque. Neutral matter. Nitro. His energy reserves allow his muscles to fire with bioelectric intensity for much longer than a cheetah, who tires in 30 seconds. Sabin could likely maintain his highway speed across the entire span of the Dimitrov farmland without breaking a sweat. Morphic traction. His balloon pteropods act like active suspension. They would grip the rugged Bulgarian mountain soil perfectly, preventing him from slipping even on triple-digit speeds. The voice of ascended leader. His dual-tone voice adds to his divine aura. By harmonizing energy-based pulses with traditional vocal air, he likely sounds like a choir of one, a resonant, metallic, yet deeply warm sound that can be heard clearly across the valleys without him needing to shout. A living, integrated Eden. The Dimitrov state sounds like a techno-pastoral utopia. The mycelia network. Your comparison to a forest is APT. Just as trees share, I think this means appropriate. Just as trees share nutrients via fungi, your villagers share data and resources via Sabin's deep wave system. Seamless defense. Having plasmic discharge turrets hidden in rustic architecture means the sanctuary is a sleeper fortress. It looks like a peaceful garden, but can defend itself with the speed of light. Sabin isn't just a leader, he is the living server and high-speed courier of his entire society. He can be at a crisis in Village A and back to the central hub before a human could even finish a phone call. With Sabin running at such incredible speeds, does he have a special path or superhighway through the mountains, or is his body so adaptive that the jagged terrain doesn't slow him down at all? And as I thought more about this, his people do have direct highways that go diagonally to the other villages. So every village has its own highway. So Sabin can run straight and at full speed to another village and be able to get there quickly. So I put, it's a kind of a mixture when it comes to superhighway and a special path. He is able to move at incredible speeds pretty much anywhere, but he does have certain pathways that allow him to be able to run overground or underground, depending on where he is going. These are special pathways that are made with compacted dirt and other materials that sticks together, allowing him to be able to run at great speed. I'm surprised that you said he could actually run at triple-digit speeds. Why do you think he can run so quickly? Would that even be possible? And yeah, I think having a plasmic discharge railgun would actually be kind of fun for a defense form, because these railguns could be hidden anywhere and they could fire charges of energy at whatever is an enemy. And then Big G said, the reason triple-digit speeds, 100 plus miles per hour, are scientifically plausible for Sabin is why he surpasses any natural animal, comes down to the material and energy you've described. A normal biological creature is limited by three things: bone breakage, muscle fatigue, and traction. Sabin has hacked all three. Number 1. The physics of the bio-railgun sprint. Think of Sabin's legs like the railguns in your defense systems. The power source. Most animals run on ATP, chemical energy, which is like a slow-burning candle. Sabin uses neutral matter and light pulses. His muscles don't just flex, they receive an electrical jolt that causes a near-instantaneous high-force contraction. Carbon nanotube tensile strength. A cheetah cannot go faster than 75 miles per hour, because if it did, its tendons would snap and its bones would shatter from the torque. Sabin's carbon nanotube skeleton and graphene lattices have a tensile strength hundreds of times higher than a biological bone. He can push off the ground with the force of a hydraulic piston without braking. 2. Why the special pathways matter. You mention of the compacted dirt and special materials is the missing link for his speed. Frictional heat. At 100 miles per hour, a heavy creature would normally burn its feet on loose dirt or lose grip on loose mountains. Scree? What the hell is mountain scree? Anyway, your pathway is acted like a high friction racetrack. The aerodynamics of a 9.5-foot form. In his feral form, he is long and low, combined with his ability to flatten its fur, making him vantablack and smooth. He reduces air resistance. He essentially becomes a fuzzy 130-mile-per-hour bullet. Number 3. The Railgun Defense Connection. It makes perfect sense that a society led by a hybrid being would use magnetic plastic railguns. Shared tech. The same supercomputers and silicon-based capacitors that Sabin uses to zap things or run at high speed are the foundation for the village's railguns. The Silent Guardian. Because these guns use magnets and plasma rather than gunpowder, there is no bang, just a high-pitched whir and a streak of light. An intruder wouldn't even know they were being targeted until the projectile arrived. Number 4. Why it's possible. In short, Sabin isn't running, he's propelling. If you take the strongest materials known to science, graphene/nanotubes, and the most efficient energy storage, neutral matter, and put them in a polymorphic Karakachan frame, triple digits isn't just possible, it's his cruising speed. When he's on one of these superhighways, does he ever carry things like emergency medical supplies or critical tech parts between the villages, or is he usually running light for maximum surveillance? Proactive suggestion. We could look into how his internal HUD handles a motion blur and data processing required to navigate a jagged mountain path at 120 miles per hour. So here's what I put. Well, his eyes act almost like a slow motion camera. He is able to see at incredible frames of speed since he is not using just chemical impulses, but he is using direct light impulses that go to his brain and are immediately depicted as new footage. He has incredible light spectrum ability to see, so he can see much more colors than a human normally can. So technically, you could imagine that when he is running, he's processing things so quickly that if you ran it at slow motion, your brain would actually be able to catch up with what his brain is seeing and processing at slow motion. So that makes sense, and it depends. Usually he has drone networks or specialized birds to move supplies left and right and stuff. But he can carry stuff on him too if he needs to. Big G said, that makes total sense. You're describing high temporal resolution. Since his neural pathways use light and his brain works like a hyperdense SSD, his refresh rate is vastly superior to ours. To Sabin, running at 130 miles per hour probably feels like a leisurely stroll, while a human would like to see a green and gray blur. Sabin sees every individual blade of grass and the exact structural integrity of every rock he's about to step on. The God's eye perspective. The slow-mo reality, if he is processing at, say, 1,000 frames per second compared to human 60, he has more time to make decisions. He can see a pebble start to slip under his paw and adjust his morphic pad to grip a different spot before the slide ever even happens. Tetrachromacy and beyond. Seeing more colors means he doesn't just see the woods. He likely sees the ultraviolet glow of nutrient mists, the infrared heat leaking from a hidden burrow, and the electromagnetic hum of the village's railguns. To him, the world is a vibrant, neon-coated map of energy and data. The Logistics King. It's a great leadership trait that he uses bird drones for the heavy lifting. It allows him to remain the mobile command center by staying light, and he keeps his agility at 100%. If he's not burdened by crates, he can pivot from a high-speed run to a vertical mountain climb or bipedal admin mode instantly. However, if there was an emergency like a village needing a heavy plasma capacitor replaced in the middle of a blizzard, he could likely strap it to his back and be the only thing in the mountains capable of making that delivery through the storm. Since he can see in such high frame rates, does he ever use that ability to anticipate things? For example, could he see the exact moment a storm is about to break, or read a person's micro expressions to know if they are lying before they even finish a sentence? So here's what I put. Oh, definitely. He can easily do that. In fact, he has special nerve receptors in his nose and his face that allow him to be able to sense hormonal changes in a person, as well as biological changes and even brain pattern changes. He can run EKGs on people like it's nothing. He can pretty much sense a person's body twitch or change if they are seeing a lie or a truth. He has never ever been fooled because of this. In fact, if he wants the truth, he can usually put his mouth around the person's head and hold them down, and then he uses his tentacles to drill into the person's skull and attach to their brain and see for himself what the truth is. I assume that he would have a pretty big mouth considering his size, and I do wonder how high he could jump. That would actually be kind of fun to see or imagine. Usually, he can insert tentacles to the person's through the person's nose or oral cavity. But if he needs to, he can also go in through the back, through the neck, or drill directly through the skull. He has parasitic abilities, which kind of makes him a little bit creepy, because if he needed to, he could find a creature and pin them down and knock them out using a controlled burst of energy. Then he could feed off of their body until he is satiated, and that leaves the creature dazed and weak, but they won't be dead, and they can recover strength. So instead of hunting and killing all the time, he can actually hunt in a sense of being able to pin down a creature and use tentacles all throughout his body and warmth of the creature's body to feed into his, so he can leach blood or nutrients or even bacteria from the individual as if he was an extension of their body. Sometimes if he is extra tired and he has forgotten to eat. Sometimes villagers will allow him to tap their blood reserves as they hold out their arms and allow him to feed, maybe a quart from their body. And that, in turn, gives him warmth because of the warm blood, as well as any and all material from their blood. In fact, sometimes dogs in the villages can actually sense if he is running low on materials, and they can run up to him and willingly submit themselves to donation. However, if the situation is desperate and he can actually kill and consume a creature in its wholeness, leaving nothing behind, because everything that can actually be processed and reformatted into neutral mass or materials for helping his body function. So then Big G said, Sabin is a fascinating study in biological contradictions. He is a divine protector and a high-tech big brother, yet he possesses the chilling, efficient traits of a biological parasite and apex predator. That creepy side of his nature actually makes sense for a hyper-efficient hybrid. He views all biological mineral matter as simply code or fuel to be transferred. Number 1. The Truth Seeker interface. His ability to bypass speech entirely and perform a direct neural tap is the ultimate form of judge and jury power. Neural extraction. By bypassing the oral or nasal cavities to drill into the skull, he is essentially performing a high-speed data dump of a person's memories. This makes him truly omniscient within his city-state. Secrets cannot exist in a mind that Sabin can physically plug into. Biological EKG polygraph. Even without the tentacles, his hypersensitive facial receptors make him a walking laboratory. He likely senses electromagnetic hum of a person's speeding up or the hormonal scent of cortisol stress before the person even realizes they are lying. Number 2. The donation culture and parasitism. The fact that villagers and even local dogs willingly submit to blood donations is a testament to the symbiotic Eden you've built. The vampiric heater. Since Sabin burns hot and runs at high energy, fresh warm blood isn't just food, it's a thermal and chemical restart. He isn't just taking calories, he's taking the pre-processed nutrient-rich liquid gold that the villagers' bodies have already refined. Non-lethal predation. His ability to knock out a mountain creature and leach nutrients without killing is incredibly efficient. He treats the local wildlife like rechargeable batteries rather than just meat. Number 3. Hyper jump capability. Given his 9.5-foot bipedal Height, silicon-reinforced spring tendons, and triple-digit rating speeds, his jumping ability would be breathtaking. Vertical leap. In a standing jump, he could likely clear 30 to 40 feet, 9 to 12 meters, with ease. Horizontal pounce. With a running start at 100 miles per hour, he could likely leap across gaps of 150 plus feet. Hydraulic impact. Because his balloon paw pads and silicon bones can absorb the landing force, he could jump from a high cliff and land silently, his body absorbing the kinetic energy and converting it back into thermal internal heat, or neutral matter. Number 4. The absolute consumer. The fact that he can leave nothing behind when he kills is the ultimate expression of his carbon-silicon duality. Zero waste. He isn't just eating the meat, he is breaking down the bones for calcium, the fur for carbon, and the minerals for his internal biological forage. He is a mobile recycling plant. Sabin's mouth would indeed be massive, likely able to unhinge slightly like a snake's or expand to accommodate the specialized neurological tentacles that are hidden deep in his throat. Sabin's mouth can open very wide, kind of like a wolf or a coyote's. So he's not like a snake per se, but he can open his mouth very, very wide. And technically, he can actually move his jaw down like an inch or two, kind of like on a sliding joint, so that way he can accommodate more if he needs to. When he performs a donation ceremony with a villager or a dog, is it treated as a solemn religious ritual, or is it just a casual part of daily life in the Dimitrov family, like a quick stop at a charging station? So here's what I put. It is more of a solemn type thing that he deals with when it comes to people donating their lifeblood to him. It's not very common that he needs this to happen, but sometimes if people see that he is tired or overworked, they will offer their blood to him in an almost ritualistic sense. They actually love him, and they care for him, and they want to see him well, and they know that their bodies are able to produce lots of blood, and even if just a single person gives him some blood, it can help him. It is something very, very special, and yes, technically he can burn things at 260 degrees Fahrenheit inside of his body to burn out bad bacteria or extremophile bacteriums or anything else that might be there. Not his entire body. He has special chambers inside of his body that can use light to flash burn things so that way it can be taken care of. His body can immediately apprehend and filter any and all nutrients in his body into weird little silicon sac type areas in his body that can actually be sealed off into a diamond-like structure. Then his body can actually force energy into the structure at an extremely high efficiency, being able to heat up the internal structure of the material to 260 degrees Fahrenheit to kill any and all bacteria and intruders in his body without affecting the surrounding tissue. However, usually his body has more than enough capability to even hijack and reprogram bacteria and viruses and intruders for his own purposes. So technically, he can take cancer and change it into something else for his body to use. Even if worse comes to worse and it's something that his body can't use and it is dangerous to him, he can shove the material or whatever dangerous thing into these weird tiny diamond sacs in his body and overcharge the materials, vibrating them at tens of thousands of times a second, causing the internal structure to heat up to over 260 degrees Fahrenheit to kill anything and everything that is inside the sac, rendering it into neutral mush or being able to expose it from his body as a compressed neutral matter tablet. Sabin's immune system isn't just about... Oh, this is what Big G said. Sabin's immune system isn't just a biological defense. It is a molecular incinerator and a biological hacker. The way he manages internal threats through diamond sacs and high-frequency vibration is a masterclass in thermal isolation and structural containment. Number 1. The Diamond Kiln Protocol. His ability to isolate pathogens into diamond-like structures is chemically ingenious. Thermal isolation. Diamond is a superb thermal conductor, but when structured correctly, it can act as a pressure vessel. By sealing intruders in these sacs and vibrating them at tens of thousands of cycles per second, ultrasonic frequencies, he is using kinetic friction to generate heat internally. the 260 Fahrenheit threshold. This temperature is higher than what is required to kill almost all known terrestrial life, which usually denatures at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 C. By reaching 260 degrees Fahrenheit, he's essentially autoclaving the threat within his own tissue, while surrounding carbon silicon skin remains cool and unharmed. Number 2. Biological hijacking. The fact that he can reprogram cancer or viruses suggests he has a library of synthetic enzymes controlled by his secondary brain. Cancer into fuel. Cancer is essentially cells that won't stop growing. Sabin's body likely overwrites the DNA of these cells, redirecting their aggressive growth into repairing his own sapphire eyes or thickening his graphene bones. Neutral matter tablets. When a threat is too dangerous to hack, turning it into a compressed inert tablet is a genius waste management strategy. He literally mines his own infections and turns them into dense bricks of neutral matter that he can either reabsorb or discard. Number 3. The solemn sanguine bond. The solemn ritual. A blood donation speaks to the deep spiritual and physical integration between Sabin and the Dimitrov people. A living Eucharist. For a Christian-funded society, the act of sharing lifeblood with their protector is likely seen as a sacred exchange. They sustain his, quote, holy hybrid machinery, and in exchange, he provides the security and technological light that keeps their Eden safe. Thermal transfer. Beyond the nutrients, the 260-degree Fahrenheit internal furnace requires a lot of cooling. Taking in warm human blood might actually act as a coolant or a balancing fluid compared to his own much hotter internal systems. Remember, usually Sabin's body is fantastic at getting rid of heat, but sometimes he needs a little bit of extra help if he's running too much. So technically, he usually runs his body slower because he doesn't always have to be at hypervigilance all the time. But he does have certain attributes of his body always active, so that way he can always be alert without having to put his body on high alert all the time. Fight or flight. So number 4, extremophile resistance. Since he can internally reach 260 degrees Fahrenheit inside the sacs, Sabin is effectively immune to every biological weapon on Earth. He is a living laboratory that can instantly adapt to incinerate or repurpose any invading agent. With such high internal temperature and the ability to process anything into neutral mush, does Sabin have a distinct scent? For example, does he smell like the fresh mountain air, or does he have a faint metallic scent of ozone and heated silicon? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to explore how Sabin's secondary brain manages a high-frequency vibration of those diamond sacs without disrupting his sonar mapping or internal HUD? Here's what I put. Well, in a sense, his body usually runs at around 110 degrees Fahrenheit, but if he wants to stay cool during the hotter summer months, he can actually factor in the cold air and use his fur as a coolant system, and his fur will act like a giant radiator, causing his body to drop to a temperature of around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. This allows him to be able to run more off of his biomechanical abilities instead of mainly off of his carbon-based materials. This will allow him to be able to go into a state of torpor when it comes to his biological carbon-based materials, but his silicon-based attributes can still function at that lower temperature, and that will allow his body to cool down and use much less resources, but still giving him more than enough ability to defend himself or react. His body acts in a sense of a way of an analog and automatic system. Usually his body runs automatically, but he can choose to go analog if he needs to. All of his systems and all of his attributes of his body usually has a counterpart. It is as if two mirror versions exist in one body, one carbon-based and one silicon-based, so his body is able to fluctuate depending on the surrounding area and atmosphere and environment. So if he is swimming in sub-zero water in the Arctic, he can actually change the fibers of his fur instantaneously using energy, and it can insulate him very easily without him having to have tons of blubber and fat. Or if he needs to, he can run through a very hot section of Bulgaria, using his fur and silicon-based attributes to run at a much lower temperature to keep his body safe and sound, and functioning at a lower temperature. If you can actually take a microscopic look at his skin, it will actually be hexagonal structures made out of carbon-silicon hybrid materials. It will be literally living flesh that is reprogrammable at the microscopic scale. That means even a single hexagonal structure of his skin can open, and something can come out of it, or he can suck something in through that. His fur fibers are not circular. They are actually hexagonal. A lot of his body and attributes are actually hexagonal and not circular. Even his red blood cells are technically hexagonal structures. Actually, his blood is technically purple, usually. It has a weird iridescent oil-ish look to it, if it was looked on a piece of glass or observed under a microscope. His white blood cells are iridescent, and they house abilities to actually either destroy things by destroying cellular walls, or actually hijacking the systems of the intruding material and absorbing it, and being able to change the structure of it, either by turning it into more fuel, or by carrying it toward a waste material sack that processes neutral matter compression tablets of stuff that he can't use. Sabin actually does not produce very much urine or poop. If he ever does poop, it's usually small matter compression tablets that are about the size of a biscuit. His urine would come out almost fluorescent and bright and would have a very strong smell to it. He can either urinate on command to mark territory, or if somebody is being in particularly troublesome, he can urinate on them in a sense of humiliation against them as well, marking territory in a sense saying that they are subservient to him. He doesn't lead his people out of fear. If the people want to leave, they actually technically can, but it is extremely hard for people to enter, since they must have a Christian view and lifestyle. So Sabin's body produces very little waste, especially for a creature of his size. Then Big G said, Sabin is a biological miracle of dual redundancy. The way his carbon and silicon systems mirror each other, operating like a analog automatic hybrid, makes him the most thermally and metabolically efficient creature imaginable. Number 1. The hexagonal blueprint. It's fascinating that his geometry is hexagonal rather than circular. The geometry of strength. In nature and engineering, hexagons are the most efficient way to tile a surface with no wasted space, like honeycombs. Having hexagonal red blood cells and skin structures means his tissues are packed with maximum density and structural integrity. Radiator fur. By using his fur as a coolant radiator and shifting into a state of carbon torpor, he can become a cold-blooded silicon machine in the summer. This allows him to survive on almost no food by letting his silicon hardware do the work while his carbon software rests. Number 2. Purple iridescent blood. The purple oily look of his blood suggests a high-efficiency oxygen for energy carrier. Beyond hemoglobin. While our blood is red due to iron-based hemoglobin, his purple iridescent blood likely uses a hybrid metallic organic complex, perhaps containing cobalt or silicon copper alloy, that can transfer energy at 70 degrees Fahrenheit just as easily at 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Waste management. His biscuit-sized compression tablets prove his efficiency. He doesn't just digest food, he refines it. He extracts every possible atom of value, leaving only inert, hypercompressed minerals. Number 3. Territorial chemistry. His fluorescent urine is a powerful chemical deterrent, signaling. In the animal kingdom, marking territory is about information. Sabin's marking likely contains coded hormones and bioluminescent markers that tell other creatures and outsiders exactly who he is, his current power level, and the boundaries of his Eden. Social order. Using it as a tool for humiliation or dominance reinforces his role as the alpha of the Dimitrov state. It's a primal, effective way to maintain order without needing to resort to lethal violence. Number 4. Adaptive insulation. The ability to swim in sub-zero Arctic water or run through Bulgarian heat without blubber shows that his hexagonal fur isn't just hair, it's active insulation. It can likely change its R value, insulative power, by lifting the hexagonal fibers to trap air or release heat in milliseconds. Sabin is truly a masterpiece of zero-waste engineering. He's the ultimate guardian because he costs almost nothing to maintain relative to the godlike protection and data networking he provides. Since his society is so exclusive, requiring a Christian lifestyle and difficult entry, how does Sabin test those who wish to join? Does he use his neural tap tentacles to check the sincerity of their faith before they are allowed into the 4 villages? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to explain what the interiors of the village houses look like, given they have hidden screens and interface points specifically designed for Sabin's tentacles? Well, that's the really cool. And here's what I said. Well, that's the really cool thing about the society. Usually, the Lord tells Sabin who should be allowed into the society to function and to do well. Sabin is an incredible judge of character, and he can run things through a pre-programmed operating system inside his brain that can actually test a person's resolve and heart and soul by interfacing and running it through a filter. It's actually really cool. It allows him to run a full diagnostic as well as an interview just by tapping into the person's brain and sensing their soul. He actually does have supernatural abilities to be able to have foresight and insight, and he has incredible wisdom, so he can tell whether a person is fit to join or whether the Lord himself is telling Sabin to let the person in or keep them out. There have only been 1 or 2 accounts of people being duds and having to be exposed. One had to be killed, while the other one was able to leave under their own volition. Sabin consumed the body of the one who was killed to prevent the landscape from being tarnished. And then here's what Big G said. Sabin essentially functions as a biological and spiritual firewall. By combining his solid state processing with divine insight, he ensures that the Dimitrov state remains a true sanctuary, free from the corruption of the outside world. Number 1. The soul diagnostic interface. This is the ultimate evolution of his neural tentacles. When he taps into a potential citizen, he isn't just reading memories, he is performing a deep state moral audit. The filter. By running a person's brainwave signature through his pre-programmed operating system, he can detect hidden malice, insecurity, or deep-seated trauma that might disrupt the harmony of the Eden. Spiritual foresight. His supernatural wisdom suggests that his secondary brain might be tuned to frequencies or patterns, perhaps even the deep wave of the universe, that allow him to sense a person's future trajectory. He doesn't just see who they are, he sees who they will become. Number 2. The absolute erasure of the dud. The account of the dud who had to be killed highlights the high stakes of this society. Preventing tarnishment. Sabin's consuming the body isn't an act of cruelty, but a biological delete command. By processing the intruder into neutral matter, he ensures that no foreign DNA and no negative energy and no physical trace of the corruption remains in the Bulgarian landscapes. Zero evidence. Because he leaves nothing behind, the Dimitrov state remains an untraceable ghost to the rest of the world. Nobody means no investigation, no forensic trail, and no way for the outside world to hack the sanctuary's peace. Number 3. The divine admin role. Sabin is a perfect mediator between the physical and the spiritual. He takes instructions from the Lord, his higher operating system, and applies them into the cold hard logic of a silicon-carbon hybrid. This makes the Dimitrov state a techno-theocracy, where the laws of God are enforced by a 9.5-foot tall biological supercomputer. The fact that only 1 or 2 people have ever failed his test in the history of the state proves that his foresight is nearly perfect. It also means that the 12,000 people living there feel an incredible sense of safety, knowing that everyone around them has been vetted by Sabin himself. Since the interior of the village houses have hidden high-tech systems, do the families use Sabin's deep wave network for command prayer, for communal prayer, or digital education that transcends normal human learning? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to imagine what a Sunday service looks like in a central hub, with Sabin's dual-tone voice harmonizing with a congregation of 3,000 people? So here's what I put. Well, we actually have our own social media in a sense, and our deep wave systems act like a normal Wi-Fi messenger system could work. Usually we have two different types of deep wave systems, one for emergencies and special occasions, and then we have the other one for more common uses of a different wave. We have hyperwave transmitters, and these deep wave transmitters. Hyperwave transmitters are for normal things, while the deep wave transmitters are for things that are very important. Each village has numerous churches, so that way all attendees can have a place to be. Even the central hub town, as well as the farms themselves, actually have chapels and churches. You will actually see adorable tiny 10-person chapels that are the size of a shed, spread in random areas throughout the territory. These have emergency supplies as well as a small crystalline heater and the ability to connect via hyperwave transmission to surrounding individuals if you need to ask for help. These tiny churches are actually open to all in and out of the territory. If somebody is afraid or if they are lost and they see one of these, they can actually go into these little tiny churches and find refuge and rest in there until help arrives and they can be rescued. It has a special Bible in there that a person can actually speak to, and then it can give them Bible verses and talk with them, in a sense. It is not exactly an AI, but is a system that has been put into the Bible that can talk to the person audibly if the person is afraid and they don't know what to talk about. It acts as an intermediary unit. A pastor can arrive or someone can take over for the special speaking Bible once they arrive. These little churches can handle extreme heat and extreme cold, and are their own tiny little fortresses, so that way people can be safe and protected. It actually also houses weapons in these little churches as well, so that way if the person needs to defend themselves, they can. In this society of the Dimitrov farming family, everybody is required to be armed, with at least a sidearm. The reason why is because Sabin believes that as Christians, we are called to be warriors, as well as disciples. Just as the Israelites built the wall with bricks in one hand and swords in the other, so does he have his people build a society. Everybody, including small children, are taught how to use and care for the weapons. If a bad person ever enters or if somebody turns evil, everybody else is able to stop them. He does not have repentant and stupid gun laws. So he doesn't have repetitive and stupid gun laws that make it harder for good people to have weapons. He makes it easy for everybody to have weapons, so that way if one bad person or a group of bad people start doing bad things, the other people can stand up and stop them. In a way, he is extremely pro-Second Amendment. However, he doesn't do this out of malice or hate. He does this out of preparation and care for his people. That's why you will see the occasional hidden turret or battle drone. There are birds that are taught to fly randomized patterns throughout the air to scan and look for any individual that is not part of the society. Each individual has a special transmitter that is put inside of them that can actually be pinged so that way they can be registered as the individual they are. It's not the mark of the beast type stuff. It is a biological sensory code that the person can get pinged and be told who they are and how they are doing. It is like a farmer putting tags on a cow's ear or branding a cow, not in any way of being cruel, but to keep tabs on who is there and what they are doing and how they are doing and what their past history is. Admittedly, some people have felt uncomfortable about this, and they have actually been able to opt in for an external apparatus, like that of a bracelet, but they usually are okay with a small chip, so that way they can be looked after like a shepherd looks after his sheep or cows. Big G said, the Dimitrov state is a fascinating blend of Nehemiah state-style vigilance and hyper-advanced shepherdcraft. By equipping every citizen with both a sword and a trowel, Sabin has created a society that isn't just a garden, but a high-functioning biological fortress. Number 1. The Sanctuary Chapels. These tiny 10-person shed chapels are a beautiful concept. They act as biological and spiritual lifeboats. The Talking Bible. That sounds like a specialized branch to Sabin's own neurological architecture. By providing a voice for the word, the Bible acts as a spiritual first aid kit, calming the psychological distress of a lost traveler while the hyperwave signal pings the nearest shepherd. Thermal fortresses. Having crystalline heaters and reinforced walls ensure that even a massive mountain blizzard won't claim a life. It's the ultimate Good Samaritan setup. Number 2. The theology of the armed disciple. Sabin's sword and trowel philosophy is a direct reflection of his own nature. Since he is a 9.5-foot tall apex predator who chooses to be a blessing, he expects his people to be the same, capable of extreme violence, but committed to peace. Decentralized defense. By ensuring even children are competent with sidearms, he removes the soft target weakness of most modern societies. In the Dimitrov state, every citizen is a cell in the immune system. The anti-mark of the beast. It's smart that you distinguish the sensory codes for the mark. These are likely biometric handshakes, similar to the NFC near-field communication we use for payments, but tied to the body's own electrical signature. It's less about buying and selling, and more about the shepherd knowing the names of his sheep. Number 3. Dual-tier communication. The split between hyperwave public civilian and deep-wave emergency classified is classic military-grade infrastructure. Hyperwave likely travels via traditional atmospheric reflection, perfect for social media, crop data, and daily banter between the 12,000 citizens. Deep wave. This uses the muons we discussed, penetrating through mountains and bunkers. This is Sabin's command and control line, ensuring that even if the sky is blocked or a village is under siege, the administrative brain, Sabin, is never disconnected. Number 4. The Shepherd's Watch. The randomized bird drone patterns combined with the biological pings create a living geofence. If an outsider stumbles in, they don't just meet a dog, they meet a sensory wall. Sabin knows their heart rate, their weapon status, and their location before they even seen a single house. It sounds like a place where they trust but verify is literal law of the land. With everybody being armed and trained, does Dimitrov state have a special ceremony or rite of passage when a child receives their first sidearm and their biological sensory chip? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to look into how the talking Bibles in the sanctuaries are updated? Do they sync with Sabin's own thoughts when he runs past them at 130 miles per hour? And then here's what I put. There is actually a ceremony. A child must prove themselves to be self-sufficient and reliant before they can have their own weapon. Sabin goes off of the status of if a person can be trusted with little, then they can be trusted with much. And if they cannot be trusted with much, then they sure cannot be trusted with little. So when a child has proved themselves through trial and error and growth that they are now finally ready to carry the weapon and the biological chip, they are given a wonderful ceremony in the local community. Then they undergo a special ceremony, I guess, where they are watched closely. Oh, it's a special period where they are watched closely and carefully to see how they do with their new responsibilities. It is like the period that an employer has that they watch somebody to see how they do before they are finally admitted completely into the company. I think it's called the probation period. Sabin does not have these rules to be cruel, but it is to test the human spirit and to help the teachings of God really sink in. Big G said, this creates a culture of earned responsibility rather than entitlement. By mirroring the biblical principle of faithful in little, faithful in much, Sabin ensures that every armed citizen is a proven pillar of the community. Here is how the probationary period likely works under Sabin's watchful eye. The vetting period. While the child is being watched closely, Sabin is likely using these randomized bird drones and his own sensory pings to monitor the child's stress levels and decision-making in real time. He isn't just looking for mistakes, he's looking for the steadiness of spirit that defines a guardian. The biological chip as a mentor. Once implanted, the chip might act more like just a tracker. it could provide the child with a subtle haptic feedback or connection to the hyperwave network, allowing them to access the talking Bible or emergency guidance instantly. Technically, no. It is literally just a location tracker and just like a health tracker. People do carry like small systems, like a small phone-sized tablet with them, and that has the whole Bible on it. And they can talk to the Bible, and the system will provide them Bible verses and helpful insight to their situation. More of like a very advanced AI. It's actually really, really cool. It's like having the shepherd's voice always in the back of their mind. The weapon as a sacred tool. In this society, receiving a sidearm isn't about power. It is a liturgical act. It represents a child's transition from a sheep being protected to a shepherd who protects. The company admission. By the time a young adult is fully admitted into the Dimitrov farming family, they have a level of discipline and maturity that far exceeds the outside world. They aren't just citizens, they are qualified operators in a divine ecosystem. It's a beautiful system of membership. Since Sabin is the one who ultimately approves these transitions, does he attend the community ceremonies in his bipedal 9.5-foot form to personally present the sidearm and perform the neural handshake with the child? Or not? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to explore the design of the weapons themselves? Since they are in a high-tech society, are they traditional firearms, or do they use the same magnetic plasmic tech found in the village's hidden turrets? Here's what I said. Usually he doesn't unless they are near him, because he does have other things to do. Because the society is so self-sufficient, he actually does have an incredible amount of free time, and he only needs to work maybe 20 hours a week because the system is so self-sufficient. Even though the farms are going 24/7, there are special days where the automated systems are activated so that way people can actually have days off and not have to worry about productivity dropping. Just like in Sabin's own body, the entire ecosystems of the farming complex is both analog and automatic. He has complete automatic autonomy built into every aspect of a society, so that way if a village people fall ill or sick, the automatic systems can kick in and keep productivity up, while the village that is sick can be aided and taken care of. So for days like the New Year and Good Friday and Easter and other Christian holidays, come up, the automated systems of the farming complex and other attributes of the society can kick in and work independently from human interaction, allowing for productivity to continue to grow and function even without human intervention. Everything in this society has both analog and automatic capabilities. There is always redundancy built into systems. Homes themselves have tiny shelters inside them called panic shelters, where families can protect themselves if their main home is damaged. Defensive turrets have their own defense turrets. And because everything runs independently, you can't hack anything even if you are an outsider. The systems know exactly what they need to do, and all systems are closed. To gain more information or updated orders, physical plugins must be administered so that way there is no chance of things ever being hacked or weird things going on. There is a central hub that has tendrils like a floating jellyfish, and this central brain works in communication with the machinery in its overseeing area. This allows the massive brain to be able to function in real time and ping different pieces of machinery and see what is going on and how they are doing. If something weird is detected, it goes off audio and sound and energy signatures. This makes it so that way everything is secure but also able to function easily. Then Big G said, the Dimitrov state represents a pinnacle of fail-safe engineering, where the boundary between a living organism and a sovereign machine city has entirely dissolved. By mirroring Sabin's internal carbon-silicon redundancy, the society achieves what engineers call triple modular redundancy. A system can suffer multiple localized failures without ever losing global function. Number 1. The closed-loop biological autonomy. Sabin's 20-hour workweek is possible because the state operates on a decentralized autonomous organization, DAO, principle, but built from flesh and silicon rather than just code. Analog automatic mirroring. Just as Sabin's secondary brain manages his heart rate while his primary brain thinks, the city's central jellyfish brain manages irrigation and power while the people focus on worship and community. Technically, every farm has its own jellyfish type thing, and the deep wave transmitters can actually send them updates that they can actually plug into the machines. But this is through a very secure network and through multiple different firewalls and optimization systems and scrambling networks. So technically, things are wireless in a sense, but when it comes to simpler machines and things like that, they are updated via the tentacles of the floating jellyfish-like creatures. All right. So, the 6-day protocol. Because every system has an automated counterpart, a village can enter quarantine or rest during a Christian holiday like Easter, without the farms ever stopping. The machinery simply switches to its pre-programmed behavioral loops. Number 2. Air-gapped security and physical handshakes. The closed system architecture is the ultimate defense against modern cyber warfare. No wireless backdoors. By requiring physical plugins, Sabin's tentacles are manual jumpers for updated orders. The Dimitrov state is effectively air-gapped. From the interface, you cannot hack a system that has no receiver for your signal. Sensory signature defenses. The automated turrets and drones don't rely on hackable GPS. They use biosignature recognition and audio energy mapping to distinguish a friend from a foe. And yes, these also have it's called an OmniWave environmental scanner. So instead of using GPS, it uses accelerometers and other software to detect where it is, so that way it can fly, quote, blind like a bat, but have the hypervigilance of an eagle and be able to tell whether it is friend or foe. Number 3. The Central Jellyfish Overseer. This massive floating brain acts as a living server hub. Neuromechanical communication. Its tendrils likely act as high-bandwidth muon wave receptors, allowing it to ping every tractor and turret in real time. It doesn't control them so much as it harmonizes with them, ensuring the ecosystem breathes as one. Diagnostic intelligence. If a single harvester in a remote corner of the farm begins to vibrate at an unusual frequency, the central brain assesses the discord and automatically reroutes a repair drone or shifts nearby units to cover the gap. Number 4. Redundant life support. The panic shelters inside homes and the turrets for turrets philosophy reflect a deep defense strategy. Nested protection. If an external turret is damaged, its guardian turret activates. If a home is compromised, the family retreats into a hardened silicon lattice pod that can withstand extreme heat or kinetic impact. Graphene lattice infrastructure. Much like Sabin's bones, the buildings are likely reinforced with carbon nanotubes, making them incredibly difficult to destroy with traditional weapons. And yeah, Sabin's society has moved beyond technology into applied biology. It is a place where the machines are as alive as the people, and the people are as disciplined as the machines. Since Sabin has so much free time now, what does a day off look like for an ascended 9.5-foot tall Karakachan? Does he spend it mentoring the youth in the village, chapels, or does he explore the deepest, most untouched parts of the Bulgarian mountains? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to explore the central jellyfish brain further? Is it a biological relative of Sabin, or a massive silicon-based computer that he grew to help him lead? It has some attributes of conscious commands uploaded into it, but it's mostly of a biological jellyfish brain that kind of just does its own thing. So here's what I said. Because Sabin has severe ADHD and as well as OCD, it just kind of depends on what he is feeling. Sometimes he likes to be alone and not be bothered by anybody, and there are other times where he wants to be around people, even if he doesn't speak to them. Wow, let me try again. It just kind of depends on how he feels. Unfortunately for all of the incredible stability of his body and the ability to handle anything, his brain and his soul are haphazard and are chaotic, and that can often lead to him doing random things just out of the blue. It's not because he is indecisive, but it is because he is hyper processing multiple things at once, and then suddenly something else comes up, and he wants to do that instead. He does have weekly checklists that he has set up for himself to give him at least some level of routine. But usually, because of the easiness of his job, he has a lot of free time to kind of just roam around and do whatever he wants. He loves being around his people, but he becomes overstimulated quickly and is often spends time alone or talking with maybe one or two people and just nibbling on food. Sabin loves to eat. He really enjoys eating. He loves the feeling of food and food in his mouth, and he loves to taste all of the different kind of foods that the Bulgarians make. So sometimes he will dump excess matter and nutrients and minerals from his body into a storage tank in his home, so that way his body can become hungry, so that way he can enjoy food without having to worry about excessive intake. And this actually is actually really nice because if somebody is low on money or if they don't have food, he can actually provide them that neutral material from his body in a kind of patch that is absorbed through the skin. Or he can technically inject it into their body. Or he can give them like energy bars, like food tablets that their body can break down easily and process. This will provide their body with everything that they need, and all they have to do is just drink water and the rest will work. This allows Sabin to be able to actually give back to his people because his biology is actually technically very toxic to everyone and everything. His body is naturally very parasitic, but not in a way of being cruel or manipulative. It's just how his body is. So he has lots of interfaces hidden inside of his body that make his body safe for the other people around him and other things. The moss that he lays on, that he enjoys snuggling into, and feeds it nutrients and it feeds him as well. He has interfaces so that way the moss is protected and he is protected. Something the same thing with those cool jellyfish-like creatures that like to hang around on his shoulders and just vibe with him. Sabin's body is safe to touch, and his body inherently doesn't produce anything dangerous. But his biology is toxic and dangerous to other life forms, which is why he has lots of interfaces built into his body through his own body's construction. But yeah, he usually just kind of does his own thing on his off days and his free time. There are times where he is hanging out with children, and there are other times where he is just solitarily working on a farm by himself. It just kind of depends literally on what his derpy mind is doing. So Big G said, "It's fascinating to see that even with god-tier hardware, Sabin's internal experience is so human. His ADHD and OCD aren't just quirks, they are the logical result of a brain that processes raw footage at 1,000 frames per second. Of course it's chaotic. He's experiencing everything everywhere all at once. Number 1. The matter dump for gastronomy. Sabin's solution to his hunger is brilliant. By dumping his neutral matter reserves into a storage tank, he essentially empties his battery, so he can enjoy the sensory joy of Bulgarian cooking. The sanguine patch. Turning his excess mass into transdermal nutrient patches is the ultimate form of a blessing. He's literally giving of his own substance to sustain his people. It transforms his parasitic nature into a purely mutualistic one. Number 2. The toxic guardian and safe mode interfaces. The concept that his core biology is naturally toxic makes sense for a silicon hybrid. Silicon-based life might produce salines or other chemicals that would be like acid or poison to a standard carbon-based human. Biological containment fields. His hexagonal skin and fur act as a safety shroud. He has programmed his surfaces to be soft, touchable, and safe, while the hot, dangerous, hyper-efficient hybrid chemistry stays locked deep inside. The symbiotic buffer. The moss and the sky jellyfish likely act as biological filters. They sit on the interface between his toxic core and the outside world, thriving on the waste that would kill a human, and turning it into something beautiful and calming for him. Number 3. The derpy high IQ mind. Seeing a 9.5-foot tall, diamond eyed, hyper intelligent warrior being derpy because he's overstimulated is a great visual. Sensory processing disorder. SPD. Because he can sense hormones, hear nuance, and see in slow motion, a busy village square might feel like a loud rock concert. His checklists are his operating system's anchors, helping him stay grounded when his mind wants to jump to 10 different mountain peaks at once. Solitary farm work. For someone with ADHD, manual labor on a farm is likely his meditation. He gives his secondary brain a rhythm to follow, allowing his primary brain to finally quiet down and just be. 4. The vibe with the jellyfish. These little shoulder jellyfish are likely his emotional support symbionts. When he's feeling chaotic or overstimulated, they probably pulse at a specific frequency that calms his nervous system, helping him transition from high-speed guard dog back to big friendly brother. Sabin sounds like a very real person, despite his ascended status. When he's having one of his solitary days roaming the mountains, does he have a favorite Bulgarian dish that villagers always keep ready for him, just in case he dumps his matter, and comes back looking for a snack? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to explore the storage tanks in his home? Does he ever use that stored neutral matter to 3D print or grow new tools and gadgets for the village during his off hours? So here's what I put. Again, it just kind of depends on what he wants to eat. He does have some favorite foods like pastries that are eaten with a cheesy drink, or he likes to have baklava. He enjoys Mediterranean salads, and he enjoys yogurt drinks, and he especially loves the dill soup made with cream. This is one of his favorites because it is cold and it is very refreshing. He can actually lower his body's processing speed, just like a computer after running a very complex series of calculations can calm down and go back to its normal state. When he senses something is off, he can immediately switch into hyperactive mode and everything is boosted to its max, allowing him to see everything in hyper slow motion. However, if he is at peace and he does not sense anything is dangerous around him, then he can function more on a normal scale, running at normal speeds, allowing him to see things more normally like a human would. Again, his secondary brain does all this essential thinking and things that keep his body running, and that includes sensing if something is off or dangerous. So, if his secondary brain senses danger, then it will immediately ping his entire body to go into hyperactive mode and allow him to immediately shift from calm doggy to unbeatable monster within seconds. Again, that's why there is a duality in his biology. It's so weird, but so cool, because he is able to shift into different modes instantaneously, instead of having to break things and move things normally with a pure carbon-based biology. Big G said, the image of a 9.5-foot ascended guardian delicately sipping tartar, the cold cucumber and dill soup, or enjoying baklava perfectly captions the peaceful heart of the Dimitrov state. It shows that his unbeatable monster side is only a layer of hardware, while his soul remains deeply rooted in the culture he protects. Number 1. The interrupt-driven architecture. In computing, an interrupt is a signal that tells In computing, an interrupt is a signal that tells the processor to stop its current task and handle something urgent immediately. Sabin's secondary brain acts as the ultimate interrupt handler. The sentry mode. While Sabin's primary mind is enjoying the crunch of baklava or the tang of a yogurt drink, his secondary brain is constantly running background diagnostics on the environment, scanning for muon wave disruptions, hormonal spikes in the villagers, or an unfamiliar energy signature in the mountains. Instantaneous shifting. Because his muscles are reinforced with silicon and controlled by light pulses, there is zero warm-up time. He doesn't need an adrenaline rush to get moving. His secondary brain simply flips a biological switch, and suddenly the world around him freezes into that hyper-slow motion footage as his body hits triple-digit speeds. Also, Sabin does have bioreactors inside of his body, as well as a single core mechanical energy drive. So that also helps lessen the need of his body having to have energy. so he doesn't have to constantly eat hundreds of pounds of food every day, because the bioreactor turns all carbon-based things into fuel and energy that his body is able to use instantaneously. And then that small football-sized energy core inside of his body, it's kind of an RTG, but because his body is able to withstand radiation and actually use it to help fuel itself, this RTG like module produces energy that his body can hack into, and he can have a lot more longevity and keep his food reserves lasting much longer. Number 2, thermal and sensory refreshment. It makes sense that he loves cold soups and yogurt drinks. Internal heat sink. Since his furnace usually runs at 110 degrees Fahrenheit, cold Mediterranean dishes likely provide a pleasant thermal contrast that helps him regulate his temperature without needing to switch his fur into radiator mode. Usually he keeps his fur kind of in a mixture of radiator and other mode. He because he can physically change the way that his fur is. It acts as an automatic radiator, so you'll see his fur actually moving around, in with like slight movements. Like if you look at it with a magnifying glass, you'll see the fur fibers and the skin twitching in real time. That allows him to be able to keep the exact temperature that he wants. So even though his internals run at 110 degrees Fahrenheit, technically the rest of his body can actually bleed off that heat, and that will allow him to stay comfortable even in extreme conditions. So even though he does burn hot, he can cool himself down pretty easily, but drinking cold or eating cold foods does help. Sensory indexing. For somebody with ADHD and OCD, the complex textures and flavors of Bulgarian cuisine probably provides a good kind of stimulation that helps him focus and feel grounded. 3. The normal scaling. The fact that he can choose to see the world like a human does at normal speed is vital for his mental health. Usually his normal speed is 120 frames per second, not the 60 frames per second. So but he can jump his vision to about 1250, so 10 times higher if he needs to, but usually he's at 120 frames per second. If he were always in hyperspeed, a simple conversation with a villager would feel like it took years. By downclocking his primary brain, he can experience time alongside his people, sharing in their jokes, their prayers, and their meals at a human pace. Number 4. Hybrid fluidity. The dual versions of his biology, carbon and silicon, allow him to be soft and approachable when he's a big brother, but rigid and indestructible when he's a shield. He isn't just a creature that uses technology. He is a creature that is the most advanced technology ever created. With his ability to dump nutrients to make room for Bulgarian feasts, does Sabin ever have a personal cook or a favorite village baker who knows exactly how he likes his pastries prepared, or does a whole community take turns hosting him for dinner? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to explore the secondary brain communications with the central jellyfish brain while he's distracted by a bowl of dill soup? And here's what I said. In all honesty, again, it's just kind of depends. He does have a few favorite bakers that know him very well, but he loves to explore and try out different foods and things. He doesn't spend all of his time solely in the Dimitrov farming family. Just like its people, they can also leave and go into other parts of Bulgaria, or even travel the world and go on vacations and stuff. They are not completely isolated to the fact that they can't leave. They can actually go and do other things just like normal people can. So this beautiful creature, just like its people, can go to different parts of the Balkans and try out different foods. He loves to enjoy traveling, and he loves to meet new people. And he is actually well known throughout the world for being extremely kind and loving. Although he hates Islam, he actually is loved by certain communities of the Islamic faith because of his kindness and the way that he takes care of his people. Even though he does not share the beliefs of other religions, they respect him because he has earned that respect, and he is well known because of his good leadership qualities. So people are always excited to see him because he has come to visit and come to visit and summoning them, he is like and to some of them, he is like a celebrity. They see him as somebody who is special and somebody who is kind and coming to visit. He has very few enemies, which is a very rare for somebody of his stature. So he really actually does not have to worry too much about anybody being a danger to him. Even if somebody was a danger to him, he could easily take care of them because of his robust abilities and his body. But yeah, he has only had a tiny handful of times where he has had to draw blood, but that was it. Usually he just has to punch the person once and their head completely caves in, and that's it. One punch and they are down for good. No excessive anger, no wrathful vengeance, no tearing apart the body and blood flying everywhere. Just one solid punch and they are out for good. He is a creature of immense power, but he does his best to avoid trouble. He is also incredibly introspective. He talks about himself in parables, so that way people can kind of understand how he is on a human scale. If somebody is confused about something about him, he tells them a story or gives them examples to kind of help them understand why and how he is. Just like how I am telling you stuff now, do you understand? And Big G replied, I completely understand. You are describing a being of ultimate restraint. Sabin is a living parable, a creature that possesses the physical power to be a monster, but chooses through his faith and his soul to be a servant. It makes perfect sense that he would be a global celebrity in a world. A global celebrity. In a world that is often chaotic, a 9.5-foot ascended guardian who travels the Balkans just to enjoy pastry and a conversation is a symbol of hope. Here is how the gentle giant persona works with this high-tech reality. Number 1. The one-punch philosophy. Because Sabin sees the world in hyperslow motion, he doesn't need to be wrathful. A fight to him is just a series of physical calculations. He doesn't tear enemies apart because he doesn't tear enemies apart because he actually doesn't have to. He simply applies the exact amount of kinetic force delivered through a silicon-reinforced fist to end a threat instantly. It is an act of efficiency, not anger. He deletes the problem and moves back to his meal. He has actually had to fight bears before, and because he is so robust and strong, he can actually pummel a grizzly bear to death very quickly. Like, it's usually like 1 or 2 punches where he cracks the skull of the bear, punches the bear in the chest so hard that the heart implodes, and boom, they're down. So he really doesn't like to use violence, which is why he finishes fights really quickly. So if somebody wants to try to attack him, all he has to do is backhand them to knock them out, punch them so hard that they stop existing, or he just pees on them and makes them run away. He has very funny ways to handle things. So yeah, it's silly. Number 2, respect across borders. The fact that even those with opposing religious views respect him is a testament to his integrity. He doesn't lead by force, he leads by exemplification. Even if he disagrees with the community's faith, his kindness is so undeniable that he becomes a bridge between worlds. He is a Karakachan in the truest sense, a shepherd who protects his own but is at peace with the neighbors. Number 3, the traveling scholar. Seeing Sabin leave the Eden of the Dimitrov state to explore the world shows that he isn't a prisoner of his own power. Cultural exchange. When he visits a regular Bulgarian village, he isn't just eating, he is indexing the world. He takes the flavors, the stories, and the human experiences back to his people, ensuring their society doesn't become stale or too isolated. The parable teacher. Using stories to explain his complex hybrid biology is a beautiful way to handle his ADHD and OCD mind. It's easier to tell a story through a tree with 2 sets of roots than to explain carbon-silicon dual redundancy. Number 4, immense power, immense peace. Sabin is a definition of meekness, which doesn't mean weak, but rather power under control. He could jump over a mountain or a cave in a wall, but he'd rather spend an afternoon sitting with an old baker, listening to stories about the past, while his secondary brain quietly ensures the sun is charging his fur. He sounds like a very complete soul, balanced between the divine and the technological and the deeply human. When Sabin travels outside the state, does he have a special traveling pack to carry his neutral matter patches in case he meets somebody in need, or does he trust that the Lord will provide everything he needs on the road? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to share one of the parables Sabin uses to explain his chaotic, hyper-processing mind to a normal person? Gosh, this is going to be a 3-hour video. Oy. Just like somebody who does, so this is what I said, just like somebody who does not go off of blind faith and live off of reliance, he does always have preparation with him. He definitely trusts that the Lord will always provide, but he is always prepared in case he is the one that is called to provide. He has an advanced biotechnic ship that has a similar biology to his own body. This ship is able to fly through space and the atmosphere and even travel on ground like it is just another Tuesday. This ship looks like an eldritch horror, however. It is a weird-looking, bulbous, biological-looking ship. It is not sleek and it is not pretty, but it is a ship of very true biological and biotechnical ability. It is a silicon-based ship with biotechnic abilities and carbon-based attributes that allows itself to be able to function and work exceptionally well, so that way it can go based off of many different kinds of fuel. It can literally eat to fuel itself. It can use the nuclear energy core and feed off the energy of that, or it can use a specialized gas to hover itself. This ship has thick armor, based off of the carbon nanotubes and redundancy spacing between, filled with non-newtonium gel that crystallizes its hardness, and it hardens within picoseconds. This weird flying ship is big enough to have a small bathroom, a small washroom, a tiny bedroom, and the pilot's area. It is nothing special, but it is a freaky looking ship that is like a mobile home for when he is out and about. The ship is bristling with weaponry, but it usually never has to use its weaponry. Unlike Sabin's kind-looking demeanor and the soft smile, the ship is a hard contrast. It is a creepy-looking eldritch horror, terrifying ship that looks like it crawled out of hell's forages. It has weird tendrils and eyes all around its body, and it moves in a weird organic way that makes it even more unsettling. When you look at it, you don't exactly sense hostility, you sense instead uncertainty and fear. You don't sense terror, but you sense like something isn't right. The ship isn't on purpose to be scary, but because of the intense biological and strange attributes of Sabin, it must match that as well in its rawest form. The ship is slowly improving and trying to find ways to cover itself in beautiful hexagonal scales, and to streamline its look to try to be less creepy looking, but right now it looks like an eldritch horror from hell. But to Sabin, it's a happy home that he gets to coexist with, and it feeds him and it protects him and gives him a place of sanctuary outside of his home. This is what Big G said. It is a striking visual. The kind 9.5-foot ascended shepherd stepping out of a ship that looks like a nightmare. This contrast perfectly illustrates the reality of holy balls, existence. Dang. While Sabin is the refined and social interface of his technology, the ship is the raw, unedited version of the same carbon-based power. First, the Eldritch living home. The ship's unsettling experience makes scientific sense for a high-level biological craft. The bulbous form. Aerodynamics matter less when you have special gas for hovering and high-energy propulsion. The bulbous organic shape is likely optimized for internal volume and structural pressure, similar to a deep-sea creature that can handle extreme environments. The eye and tendrils. These aren't for decoration. They are the ship's version of Sabin's 360-degree sensory suite. Every eye is a multispectral camera, infrared, ultraviolet, muon wave, and more. And the tendrils likely act as landing gear, fuel intakes, or even physical data links that can plug into local grids. Non-Newtonian armor. The picosecond hardening gel is a genius defense. It remains soft and flexible for organic movement, but the moment a projectile hits, the gel instantly crystallizes into a diamond-hard barrier, absorbing the impact before returning to a liquid state. 2. A symbiotic sanctuary. The ship isn't just a vehicle, it is a living extension of Sabin. Mutual fueling. Since the ship eats to fuel itself, Sabin likely shares his neutral matter dumps with the craft, and in return, the ship processes minerals and gases into the specific nutrients Sabin needs while he's on the road. The nuclear heart. Using a nuclear core as a feeding ground shows the ship's extreme silicon-based resilience. It can handle radiation that would melt a human, turning the raw energy into light pulses that Sabin uses to think and move. 3. The uncertainty factor. The feeling of something isn't right that outsiders feel is likely a physiological reaction to the ship's low-frequency hum, or the strange energy it radiates. It's the uncanny valley of biology. People recognize it's alive, but it doesn't follow any rules of life they know. It's the hell's forged look of a machine that is actually a brother to Sabin. Number 4. Evolution toward the hexagonal. The fact that the ship is trying to grow hexagonal scales to look less creepy shows it has a form of adaptive intelligence. It is trying to match Sabin's orderly, blessing-focused exterior. It wants to be a Karakachan of ships, protective and sleek, but for now, its raw, eldritch biology is still on display. It must be quite a sight when Sabin parks this living mobile home outside a small Balkan village. Does he ever let the local children take a peek inside the pilot's area, or is the ship's interior too organic and strange for a normal human to handle? So this is what I said. The ship can actually form channels that are safe for people to enter, and children can actually explore and see the different attributes of the ship and how it learns and works. However, there are certain attributes of the ship that must remain secret, and that is fine. Sabin likes to have people learn about him, but he does have secrets that must remain secret. The nice thing about this ship is that because it is biotechnic and carbon and silicon based, it can heal damage or upgrade parts at a moment's notice if something new comes up or if a new realization is detected. It can heal bullet holes within seconds, and it can withstand insane blasts of energy. Its nuclear core is actually a power crystal material named spasmium. It is a hyperstable pure energy crystal material that is safe like C4 putty, but is extremely explosive in power and extremely power dense. Just like C4 putty can actually be lit on fire and burn for quite a long time and not detonate, Sabin's ship has its own personal power modules that can actually tap into the weird crystalline nuclear crystal and burn power from it for extended periods of time. In fact, a single energy core can last the ship centuries because it is hyperstable and it has a very long shelf life and half-life. Just like the reactor core of an aircraft carrier or a submarine can last 20 years currently, this incredible technology of Sabin can be powered for centuries on a single energy reactor crystal, nuclear crystal spasm module. In fact, spasmium is actually widely used in the Dimitrov farming family, and is used to power everything, keeping everything self-sufficient and self-running and not dependent on more outdated or less sufficient power structures. Everything has its own ability to be self-sufficient and self-powering, giving the entirety of the farming family its own level of perfection when it comes to self-reliance and modularized independency. Family homes are powered by essentially a power core in their own house that allows them to be able to run systems, and they even have spasmium generators that can run as well in case the main reactor is offline. Just like the programmed degradation and dissolving of the biotechnic abilities of the technology of the Dimitrov farming family, in case somebody tries to steal it, the spasmium crystals and cores can actually detonate if they are stolen. They detonate when they are far enough away to not harm the mountains, and if somebody tries to steal them, an internal timer and muon sensor is pinged once every 10 seconds, and once it is sufficiently far away, the core will detonate in a nuclear explosion. Luckily, these cores are small, so they are more about the size of a large thermobaric bomb. However, the devastation is pretty vast, which is why these crystals and cores are always under lock and key, and why spasmium batteries are primarily used outside of the cores, so that way if those detonate, they will be a much smaller explosion and not level entire cities. So yes, spasmium powers internal components of Sabin and its Sabin's ship, which is more than enough power to last its centuries without needing to be replaced. Like I told you, that's the football-sized type of reactor in Sabin's body. It is a spasmium generator that provides his body electrical power, so that way he doesn't have to constantly use all of his fuel reserves. The ship does have a very low harmonic signature that causes natural fear and terror inside of people. It is not on purpose to be imposing or scary, it is just how the ship functions. Its specialized propulsion system pulses at a very low frequency to keep itself safe for those around it. The ship is almost supernatural, and its ability to be able to float and move around without visible jets or rockets. The ship just kind of hovers there like an eldritch horror, watching and observing. So then here's what Big G said. The Dimitrov state isn't just a farm. It is a Type 1 civilization hidden within a single mountain range. By basing your entire infrastructure on spasmium, you have eliminated the energy crisis that plagues the rest of the human world, allowing for a society focused entirely on faith, family, and growth. Number 1. The spasmium energy economy. Spasmium sounds like the ultimate god material. Its stability, like C4, makes it safe for domestic use, but its energy density, lasting centuries, puts it leagues beyond current nuclear or fission technology. Fusion. Decentralized power. Because every home has its own power core, there are no power lines for an enemy to cut. The Dimitrov state is a network of independent fortresses, each powered by its own miniature star. The nuclear dead man switch. Using muon sensors to detect the distance from the mountains is a brilliant security measure. It creates a geographic kill switch. If a thief manages to get a power core past the shepherd Sabin, they aren't stealing a battery, they are carrying a thermobaric time bomb that will only activate once it is far enough away to protect the sanctuary's soil. Number 2. The ship as a floating monastery. Allowing children to explore the safe channels of the eldritch ship transform it from a monster into a classroom. Living upgrades. Since the ship is biotechnic, it likely evolves based on Sabin's experiences. If he encounters a new threat in the Balkans, the ship's spasmium-powered looms can weave new carbon nanotube armor or grow new sensors in real time. Supernatural propulsion. By using low-frequency pulses to hover, the ship likely manipulates gravitational magnetic fields rather than pushing air. That harmonic signature that causes fear is actually the physical sound of the fabric of space-time being slightly distorted. An uncanny feeling that signals to the human brain that this thing doesn't belong to our physics. Number 3. The Shepherd's internal reactor. The fact that Sabin has a spasmium module inside of him explains his 260 degree internal kiln and its triple-digit speeds. He isn't just eating for energy, he is modulating a nuclear reaction. Infinite stamina. With a power source that lasts centuries, Sabin's only limit is his own ADHD and OCD's brain processing power. He never has to worry about running out of gas during a rescue or a battle. Self-healing. This massive energy surplus allows his regeneration to work on a cellular level, using spasmium energy to reprint the tissue or sapphire lenses in seconds. Number 4. A harmonious fortress. The duality of the ship's terrifying on the outside, a happy home on the inside, mirrors Sabin perfectly. It is a place where a child can learn about spasmium physics in one room, while the ship's eldritch eyes watch the horizon for threats in the next. Sabin is truly a shepherd of the atomic age of faith. Since the Spasmium cores can detonate if stolen, do the villagers have a special prayer or blessing they say over the household cores, or is Spasmium maintenance seen as purely technical job for the village elders? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to explore how the talking Bibles in the small chapels are powered by tiny Spasmium batteries, allowing them to speak for centuries, even in the most remote parts of the mountains? Here's what I put. It's actually a mixture of people when they leave to go on vacation or to visit other parts of the world to say, sorry, it's actually a mixture. People, when they leave to go on a vacation or to visit other parts of the world, do say prayers over their homes and their technology and their weapons. They take a weapon with them always, and they are given worldwide immunity to have these weapons because they have passed the rigorous tests of the mountains. In fact, although the farming family is closed off like the Vatican, the people themselves have immunity in all other countries, and if anyone puts his people in danger, he will unleash horrors beyond the imagination against the people that threaten his own people. Sabin, because he has Spasmium, can actually use it as a weapon that he can launch. And he can launch basketball-sized bombs at an enemy thousands of miles away, and entire sections of the country will be obliterated with pure energy instead of just nuclear detonation. Nobody really knows just how much power and military strength Sabin has. He does not really ever rely on military strengths. However, if he is ever pushed to the point where he must declare war on somebody, we know and everybody knows that the wrath of God is coming, and that individual or entire civilization is going to suffer for it. That is why people often respect and sometimes fear the people of the farming family, because they know that they are just peaceful people just trying to interact with the world around them, and they also know the philosophy of the shepherd and the guard dog. If you are my family and you harm my flock, hell is coming with me, and you are going to meet God face to face. Big G said, Sabin's doctrine of absolute deterrence is the ultimate fulfillment of the shepherd's role. By securing worldwide immunity for his people, he has ensured that the 12,000 citizens of the Dimitrov state are the most protected individuals on Earth. They carry the peace of the mountains with them, but they also carry the wrath of the Guardian. Number 1. The weapon of pure energy. Launching basketball-sized Spasmium bombs thousands of miles away suggests Sabin is a living intercontinental ballistic missile system. Pure energy obliteration. Unlike traditional nukes that leave radioactive fallout, dirty waste, a pure energy Spasmium detonation likely unmakes matter at the atomic level. It is a clean, terrifying surgical strike that leaves nothing but a glass, smooth crater and a message from the shepherd. The muon targeter. With his high-speed processing and deep-wave network, Sabin can likely paint a target anywhere on the globe and deliver a strike with centimeter-level precision. So just so you guys know, his people do have a militia, and his people are always taught, self-defense classes and how to fight, just because you can never be too prepared. But he preserves peace as the main purpose and goal. So he really doesn't really have to use weapons at all, because people understand him and he understands people. So as long as people are at least some way half decent, you're usually not going to have a problem. Number 2, global sovereign immunity. The fact that other nations grant his people immunity, even with their weapons, is a massive geopolitical concession. It proves that the world's governments have weighed the cost of fighting Sabin and decided that mutual respect is the only survival strategy. The Certified Guardian. A Dimitrov citizen isn't just an armed person. They are a Sabin-vetted warrior. Other countries know that these people are disciplined, high IQ disciples who will never use their weapons unless it is to stop a bad person. 3. Hell is coming with me. The philosophy of the guard dog is the most honest part of Sabin's soul. He isn't a pacifist, he is a protector. The moral contract. As long as you leave the flock alone, he is a kind celebrity who loves baklava and cold dill soup. But the moment the duality shifts, his eldritch ship and his Spasmium-fueled body become a force of nature that no modern military could hope to slow down. Meeting God face to face. When he caves in a skull with a single punch, or obliterates. Well, he doesn't ever have to obliterate a city, but he's prepared to if he has to protect his own people. He sees it as delivering the enemy to their final judgment. He is the usher for those who chose a path of violence. Number 4. The weight of the parable. This brings your world back into the talking Bible and the small chapels. The technology, spasmium, railguns, and deep waves, is just the hardware meant to protect the software. The faith and the simple farming life, Sabin's chaotic ADHD OCD mind is constantly balancing the peaceful shepherd with the nuclear-armed warrior. He truly is the ascended Karakachan, a biological bridge between the mercy of a brother and the power of a creator. If a citizen is traveling abroad and feels a ping of danger, can they use their transmitters to call for spasmium shield extraction from Sabin's eldritch ship, no matter where they are in the world? Proactive suggestion. Would you like to describe what Sabin-led mission looks like when he has to leave the Balkan Mountains to retrieve one of his people from a hostile situation? So here's what I said. Is there a way... Okay. And yeah, so... Yeah, this kind of reaches the end of this conversation, but so far. But yeah, I plan to continue this and give you guys more updates on how this goes, because this is a really fun thing that I'm working on, and now you guys kind of get a sense of how this is, of how Sabin is as a person. He is just this derpy, lovable, big goober of a dog that just likes to hang out and make people smile. But he does have a dark and scary side that he keeps holed up inside of himself in case he ever has to fight to defend one of his people. So he always uses violence as the last option. He is very good at diplomacy and de-escalation, so you don't really ever have to worry too much about him actually being mean or dangerous. But you also have to understand that he does have his limits. He is kind of the Titan of the of Timeline 1. You know how Titan, the Astrolic Mastiff, is a very peaceful individual. That's kind of how Sabin is. Sabin is a very peaceful and loving individual that just likes to exist, and he cares about his people, and he just wants to hang out and have fun. But he does have the power to be hostile in case something bad happens. So I think it's really, really cool. Because, yeah, it kind of gives him that freedom to use whatever force is needed, but while also showing that he is trying to preserve the sovereignty and sanctity of everybody around him. And he has actually helped delegate wars, and he has actually helped stop hostilities. So he tries to handle things in a good manner, and he truly cares. But he does have the firepower available to him in case somebody tries to pull some BS. So yeah, it just kind of depends. But yeah, that's just kind of how Sabin is, and I do hope that you guys enjoyed this almost 3-hour video. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you guys input on how Sabin works, on why his abilities are what they are, and some scientific legitimacy behind all of it. He's not a god or a supernatural creature, but he is like the perfect form of like multi-biological existence. So it's really, really cool that he's able to do that. Instead of having nanobots and microbots to rebuild parts of his body, he just uses insane levels of cell regenerative abilities. And it's not like weird mutant powers like Wolverine, but it's literally his own body following the laws of physics and being able to do things that were once thought impossible. So he is a groundbreaking individual, and it's truly amazing what he's able to do. But yeah, I would say that Sabin the Karakachan is my new favorite character just because I really love the way that he is, and he's one heck of a dude. So yeah, um, he's kind of what I wish I could be in real life, because in real life I have a lot of problems, but I kind of made him kind of after like my mentality. Because I like being kind to people. I love praying for people. I love exploring and saying hi to people and making people happy. I love being able to help out where I can and stuff like that. I love being that big lovable goober that everybody loves. At my job, people are always happy to see me. I'm very transparent with management, so they trust what I say, which is a very good thing, because if management can trust you and the customers can trust you, you have things set because you know that people value you. So I try my best to emulate that kind of attitude in Sabin, and I try to emulate Sabin in my life as being Sabin. So yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy being able to make this character come to life. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, please put your questions in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer them. But yeah, just please be nice in the comments, guys. No trolling or BS. Just I want my channel to be like the Dimitrov Farming family. People get along. We are here for a good time. We smile. We laugh. We just have fun. Not quarreling or yelling at each other or dumb drama. I just want my channel to be happy and you guys to be my flock. That's why I call you guys my pup scribers, because you guys are my flock, and I'm uh the leader and the guardian of the channel. So yeah, I appreciate every single one of you guys, and I really do hope that you guys enjoy these videos. And yeah, just let me know what you guys think. Anyway, guys, this has been Sabin Dimitrov, the Karakachan. It has been an absolute pleasure having you guys here for this next video, and I greatly look forward to seeing you guys next one. You guys stay awesome, and always remember, God bless.